powerful. Remember when I did this the earlier session, I said, because this Ramakrishna was so established in God, and one day he even smacked Rani Rasmani, the owner of the temple, saying, hey, you can't think of your court case in the temple, think of Mother Goddess. Smack! And so he's gone completely nuts, and he's not sane anymore, he's become insane. And the reason why he's insane is because he's celibate. So they took him to the house of ill repute. Remember, I did the story. And this Ramakrishna, in this, kind of establishing God realization, was taken to this courtesan called Lakshmi Bai. The moment he faced Lakshmi Bai, he put his hands together, oh mother, you are here too, and bowed down to her. So this Lakshmi Bai, who is a prostitute, came running down to Mathur Babu and his Banej and said, look, what are you trying to do? Trying to ruin us? Now they are prostitutes. They're telling, why are you trying to ruin us? You're sending us a holy man and trying to tempt him? This is terrible. Don't do that to us. They're telling them, being a prostitute is not a problem. This is business. But this thing is not right. So this thing didn't work, but it didn't stop there. Let me tell the story, gives a different color. In the same manner, when Ramakrishna at a very young age had gone to his village, his parents said, oh God, he's losing his mind. All this time, Mother Goddess. Only way to make him sober again is to get him married. So at a very young age he was married off, and somehow he didn't mind. He just got married and came back to Dakshineshwar. And then now, at the age of 18, the wife comes to the temple to see her husband. Her name is Sharadamani. She comes to the temple, Ramakrishna welcomes her. Now you might wonder, what is happening? Why is this highly celibate, a sannyasi, going to interact with a wife? A wife entering the stage now. What is going to be the link here? Didn't I tell you, Ramakrishna comes with tremendous amount of reconciliation. Reconciliation between bhakti and jnana, reconciliation between dvait and advait, reconciliation between grahastha and sannyas, householder and a renunciate. That reconciliation is visible in his life, and this is how it unfolds. Let me very, very clearly tidy up this thing. Ramakrishna had no physical relationship with his wife ever. Well documented, so there is no mischief here. And yet the wife comes, and she asks a very blunt question of this Ramakrishna. He said, how do you see me? And he replies, look at the reply. He says, the same mother that I worship in the temple, the same mother is sitting in front of me and massaging my feet now. And the woman was taken aback. What language, what words? This Ramakrishna throughout his life always called his wife, addressed his wife, never as tu in Gujarati and same in Bengali, which means singular, but as thou, tame. Now you see, if the rest of us householders here wish to experiment on this, it's very risky, especially when you get visitors. If you start addressing your wife as tame, we'll have fireworks afterwards. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let me go back. He always gave her that highest respect, that dignity. And yet there was no physical relationship. The wife lived in a separate room, which is just across the courtyard. I've seen the room. It's literally 4 feet by 6 feet room, hardly room to move. She just stayed there, cooked food for him, served him, and looked after him for the rest of his life, throughout his life. This is the role. You see, what is happening is this. This is something unique that is visible in the story of Ramakrishna. He says, do not treat marriage as a license for lust. After the birth of 1 or 2 children, treat your wife not as an object of enjoyment, but as a spiritual companion. Raise her level, do not see her as an object. Give her that dignity, see her as a spiritual companion. But again, you see, it's so gentle. He says, after the birth of 1 or 2 children, now your view of your wife must change dramatically. Look, let me tell you why it is so necessary and important. You see, the greatest thing that ties us down as this physical being, as a material being, is this physical attraction that we have for other gender. Unless we can rise above this physical attraction, there is no chance. We are not spoiled sports. There is no chance you can really experience yourself as a spirit. So it is necessary to rise above this strong physical attraction. And the way that you do it is this. Rather than look at the other person as a body, if you look at the other person as an individual, breathing through that body, individual, when you see a person not as a material manifestation but as a spirit, lust or attraction for the body will disappear forever. You see the marvelous message visible in the story of Ramakrishna. In modern times, it is telling a modern householder, house is fine, a householder's life is fine, but raise your eye level. Now no longer view your wife as an object of enjoyment. See her as a spiritual companion equal to you. When you give her that dignity, see how your life is transformed. You bring spirituality in your routine life. So now it is not that either you are a grahasti or you are a sannyasi. You can be a grahasti and yet live a life of renunciation. Raise your level. This was not visible with any other teacher in the past. It's visible in the story of Ramakrishna. He's giving a prescription for the householder. Raise yourself up. This is a unique feature of this Ramakrishna. And the story of this mother, this Sharadamani, in a way reflects this unique feature. That you treat your companion not as just object, physical, but as an individual, a spiritual being who is going to stand by you for spiritual progress. Lift your vision. This is the story of Sharadamani. The story goes on. Now this Ramakrishna is ready. You see, he's mastered everything. All the tools are ready. Now he wants to give out his spiritual message, if you like, his spiritual inheritance to the rest of humanity. He needs carriers, he needs ambassadors of his message. He would climb up to the terrace in the Calcutta temple and look at Calcutta, and with his heart kind of as if a wet towel is being kind of squeezed, his heart would be squeezed like that. He would scream and say, "Oh my children, where are you? Where are you, my children? Come here. I'm fed up of listening to this worldly talk. Come here. I want to talk of the highest things. Where are you, my children?" You see, the cry goes out, and now the various children of Ramakrishna begin to arrive. Let me just touch on one other aspect. Sharadamani's mother was a bit annoyed that how dare I marry my daughter off to this man who is mad. She will never have a happy married life and no children. And Ramakrishna heard about it, so he sent the message through his Sharadamani to his mother-in-law. He's a gentle fellow. Tell your mother, he said, that a day will come when thousands and thousands of people will scream mother at you until your ears ache. That many people will call you mother. Tell her you will have more children than you ever wanted. And then Sharadamani recalls in her words, he said, this has come true to be true. Let me say something else about Sharadamani. You see, Ramakrishna is a hard taskmaster. If you ask him for this and that and other things, he will not give you that. He will give you the highest, not what you want, because you normally want the lowest. What do we want normally? We want big house, big car, lottery, a beautiful husband, a handsome husband, and a beautiful wife. This is what we cry for. He won't give you that. He's a hard taskmaster. Last person you ask for this thing is Ramakrishna. But there's a soft corner to Ramakrishna. That's this Sharadamani. If you appease Sharadamani and say, please tell him, he doesn't listen to me, then you can get your way. I'm telling you the secret. The reason why it is so is, let me tell you a real example. After Ramakrishna had passed away, his disciples were actually at nothing, no place to stay, no shelter, no food, no money. They were wandering around in the streets of Calcutta, feeling dizzy without, kind of water or food and falling about, fainting. They were all toppling all over the place. And Sharadamani is looking, this is terrible. These are Ramakrishna's children. They don't have a shelter, no place for sustenance. This is terrible. And she said, oh Ramakrishna, you can't do this to your children. Give them a shelter, give them shelter. And in no time, the whole thing, Beluru Math and Ramakrishna mission came into being. So all the disciples of Ramakrishna, we know where to go. Leave Ramakrishna alone, catch Sharadamani. Soft corner. Just touching on some interesting aspect of the story of Sharadamani. Anyway, now Ramakrishna is asking, screaming, oh my children, come to me. The first people who started visiting Ramakrishna were actually householders. They were not youngsters. Youngsters will come in the next episode. The first two householders who came, the first one, very famous, is Dr. Ram Prasad. Now, Ramachandra Dutt. Dr. Ramachandra Dutt was a very famous physician, extremely good lecturer, and a crass atheist. He had decided that everything about the world can be explained in terms of science, rationality, and this need of relating to religion and spirituality is outdated, is superstition. So Ramachandra Dutt was the crass, rank atheist, and he's the first person to visit Ramakrishna. He comes with his cousin brother called Manmohan Mitra. Both these cousins are atheists. So the first visitors, they have a doctor, and an atheist to add on, they visit Ramakrishna. Look at the story, how they come. You see, they thought we'll find somebody who's kind of shaven head with a little tuft of, little kind of choti at the back and kind of wearing all these tilas and sitting, with all these orange robes. They say we arrived at about 1 p.m. at Dakshineshwar, and we entered into came near Ramakrishna's room. It was locked. We didn't feel right to knock on it. Maybe there's somebody who's sleeping, so we sat around. In no time, a man opened the door and invited us in. We went inside and we were surprised. It looked so ordinary. Look. Nothing, no marks, no ornaments, nothing, no sign of religion anywhere. One piece of white cloth. This is how he was dressed. Let me tell you about the room. It's interesting to really make the room come alive. It's a medium-sized room. It has got one bed and one little wooden bedstead, like a wooden bench, very uncomfortable, and a little stool where Sri Ramakrishna would sit. Wooden stool. There's nothing, no cushions, nothing. There was a carpet or a mat on the floor where some devotees would sit on the floor sometimes, and Ramakrishna would sit on the wooden bedstead and talk to them. This is the room they enter. Now, the moment they enter, the first thing that drew their attention is that this man is so simple, so guileless. There is no other external show of religion. That impressed them. This is the best way to impress an atheist. Don't make any show of religion. Then they said, he's a normal man. So they could interact with him straight away. They felt very comfortable with him. Now you see this Ramachandra Dutt, one of his daughters had died recently. So he was grieving inside. He was trying to resolve the idea, can there be a God? Look at my painful condition. There can't be a God. And this is visible when the Ramakrishna meets and he knows exactly what is his state of mind, what is his background and where he's going. He's aware. So he attracts both the brothers and says, both the cousins say, come here again and again. And he talks very nicely, sweetly, gently to them about the idea. The first question Ramachandra Dutt says, can God be seen? Look, this is the cry of the heart. He wants validity, an atheist looking for validity of God. Can God be seen? Ramakrishna says, yes, he can be seen, my boy. He can be seen more clearly than I can see you. See the language of his spiritual experience. This was very exciting and interesting. And yet these are atheists. They're not going to be easily taken in by this kind of sweet talk. They go away, but they are hooked. They are hooked by the personality. The simple, guileless personality of Ramakrishna draws them, not high philosophy. This is what draws them. They are struggling with the idea of God. One night, you see this Manmohan Mitra, when he's trying to visit Ramakrishna, while he's trying to go, his family member are trying to stop him. Said, look, if he goes and sees that man again and again, he's likely to become a sannyasi, renounce. We can't let him off. See, your members in your family will not let you off that easily. And the moment Manmohan Mitra goes, Ramakrishna is standing around looking very agitated. He said, what can I do? If a devotee wants to come here and the family member wants to stop him, what can I do? What can I do? And Manmohan says, he's talking about me. This is what used to happen all the time. Again and again he said, I'm very annoyed. This man wants to make spiritual progress and the family members are holding him back. What can I do? He would talk like that. He said, he's talking about me. Manmohan says, he's talking about me. How can he read my mind? How does he know what is happening in my home? He knows. Now this Ramachandra Dutt, one night went to sleep. I told you the story, I'm trying to make it as less mystical as possible. I can't help myself. One night, He's about to when he goes to sleep, he has a wonderful dream. In the dream, this Ramachandra Dutt sees him taking himself a bath in a pond that he likes. He comes out and he sees Ramakrishna waiting for him. And Ramakrishna gives him a mantra to recite and tells him, recite this 100 times every day. You see, you get many kinds of, all of us get dreams surely. But when you get this kind of spiritual dream, nobody else to come and authenticate it. You know there's something special has happened to you. You feel that this was real. When you wake up, you feel excited. I'm sure if you are lucky, we've had such dreams where spiritual personalities appear in our dreams. And we know these are not ordinary dreams. So the Ramachandra Dutt was very excited. This is a marvelous experience. This is good, wonderful. And he went rushing to Ramakrishna and said, look, I saw you in the dream and you gave me the mantra. Ramakrishna said, shush, keep quiet, practice. And he's practicing. While this is happening, he's still not getting any spiritual experience at all. So this Ramachandra Dutt is getting more and more agitated, very worried. One day he says, let me test my mantra. He came at the middle of the night to Dakshineshwar temple. This is a magical story. Middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, he sits on the porch outside Ramakrishna's room and recites the mantra quietly in his mind, repeats the mantra in his mind, says, let's see the potency of this mantra. In no time the door opens and Ramakrishna walks out and comes near him and sits next to him. Imagine you invite God and God comes walking out. A God-man comes like that. And then this kind of relationship becomes much more closer. He comes into Ramakrishna's room and Ramakrishna says, look, whenever you hear this word, he says, what do you want, my boy? You see a God-man telling you, what do you want? And Ramachandra Dutt recalls in his diary, he said, I thought, what should I ask for? Money, standard stuff for human beings. Money. He said, nah. Mystical powers, siddhis. He said, nah. He said, I leave it to you. That was the wisest thing he could have done. I leave it to you what you want to give me. And Ramakrishna said, okay, give me my mantra back. I'm not joking, this is a fantastic story. Give me my mantra back. How do you give your mantra back? So Ramachandra Dutt bowed down and repeated the mantra and said, I'm offering it like a flower at your feet, your own mantra back. Now let me tell you what was going on. You see, you all go in the internet and you do bookings, theater tickets, and they say print it out. And then when you go to the theater, you have to present that ticket, and then you can enter the theater and see the show. This is what Ramakrishna had done in the dream. He had given the ticket. And now he's saying, you want the show? Give me the ticket back, and you can enter. He asked for the ticket. He said, give the mantra back. You say, why he's asking for the mantra back? Because he's done his job. You are now going to enter the realm of the spirit. Give the mantra back. Ramachandra said, I don't know. I bowed down and said, okay, repeated the mantra in my mind, said, offer it to you like a flower at your feet. He said, the moment I did that, I felt a thrill. I went into a super conscious state. And in that state, Sri Ramakrishna said, now, what do you want? He said, I want to see my chosen deity. They don't tell us which chosen deity, because all of us, this is secret. The way we like to think of God is a very private thing. I wish to see my deity, the object of my worship. Ramakrishna said, look at me. And Ramachandra Dutt says, when I looked, what more? I hit the jackpot. I saw my deity smiling and standing in front of me. His theater ticket had been passed. He had that wonderful experience. You can see his life is transformed. You see, when we achieve the thing that we starve for, we are searching for, God experience. And here is this man who is dishing it out in the form that you like. Take it, my boy, take it. And he gives it away like that. Now the life of Ramachandra Dutt, is changed forever. He becomes one of the greatest devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, becomes one of his great providers, continues to visit. And in fact, it is this Ramachandra Dutt, you may not know this, who built the first temple devoted to Ramakrishna. It is not Belur Math, it is not Dakshineshwar, no, it is Ramachandra Dutt built the first temple. It is Ramachandra Dutt who wrote down the story of Ramakrishna. And the first publication did not come out from the Ramakrishna mission, came from Ramachandra Dutt. So this man was kind of thrilled by the spiritual experience of this master, in his own way, repaid in his own little way, built a little temple, made the first publication, made Ramakrishna famous in the world, in the marketplace of Calcutta. So this is how Ramachandra kind of becomes closely linked as the first disciple, a householder disciple, expressing the love of spirituality that becomes visible, comes to its fruition with this master called Ramakrishna. The story is not going to finish here. I'm just beginning to unfold the story of Sri Ramakrishna. The real players are yet to appear. Who are the real players and what part do they play? You see, these are householders. They are fine. But the dynamos of spirituality are the young blood who are searching for spirituality in the mode that suits the modern world. And these personalities, 16 of them, will appear as we progress in the story of Ramakrishna. Each one of them comes with a unique character. And you see, one of the unique features of this Ramakrishna was this. Whenever anybody came to visit him, any youngster or anybody, he would say, "Come here. What do you think of this?" Even this is an ego-centered comment. He's asking, praise me or something. "What do you think of this?" He would say. He would never say me. He said, "What do you think of this?" And everybody will give some reply. Actually, do you know what was happening? Ramakrishna was measuring their depth. They were not expressing the idea of what Ramakrishna is about. Ramakrishna was checking them out. He would ask all the disciples, "What do you think of this?" Some would think, "I think you are a very, a great saint of Dakshineshwar." Some say, "You are a God-realized person." Somebody say, "I can't express, I don't have any words." All of them gave different replies, but in a way they showed up their character. Their capacity to absorb spirituality becomes revealed in the way they interpret or try and interpret Sri Ramakrishna. You see, this is a unique feature of this personality. He is like, simple, like a transparent glass. When you look at him, actually you see yourself, or your capacity of spirituality becomes visible. You never see him, but you see your own level of spirituality reflected in the way you interpret or you interact with this personality called Ramakrishna. And in the next few sessions, we are going to now explore these various youngsters who came into his fold, and how this marvelous ideas of spirituality, the broad vision of spirituality, became kind of, entered society. Let me finish with one particular parable that he gave, Keshav Chandra Sen. And you see the power of this parable and why it's so relevant in modern times. Keshav Chandra says, "What is God like?" He said, "Look, let me do a story. There was a chameleon under a tree, living under a tree. Various people used to see the chameleon and they said, one side is red, other side is blue, other side is green. And they couldn't come to any agreement. What is the color of the chameleon? What is its true color? A wise man who used to live under the tree told them, "My friends, same chameleon, it is changing colors all the time. In the same way, the same God appears differently to different people and different religions. Same one thing. He has no color of his own. In a way, you color him with the color of yourself." This is the depth of spirituality. Let me touch on this. This is the idea that are going to become incorporated in the theology in this century. At the experiential level, when you experience spirituality, at the experiential level, all religions meet up. All the prophets I am declaring, and this comes from my master, all the prophets have the same experience. Same kind of thrilling experience of spirituality. The moment they open their mouths and try and give it verbal expression, because they must express this experience, the moment they open their mouths, they use the framework that they possess to try and give expression to this wonderful spiritual experience. And this particular framework they possess in a way reflects the culture, the society, the history in which they belong. So this marvelous same experience seems to appear different. It comes through in different verbal methodology. Different words are used to give expression to the same experience. Let me just show you. You see Buddha. The spiritual experience he possesses, when he tries to give it expression, he doesn't talk of any God, he talks of enlightenment, just enlightenment. The same spiritual experience, when Christ gets it, what expression does he give? He says, my Father in heaven, like a super personality. The same spiritual experience, variety of different prophets have, even though the experience is same, the moment they try and give it verbal expression, there is a variation. And the variation are the different religions of the world. This comes from Ramakrishna. So what he says is this is what he told Keshab. He said, Keshab, this ultimate reality is the same. That is absolute. But the pathways that you try and use to reach this ultimate are varied. And the pathways, all the pathways are relative. They are not absolute. See the powerful teaching. So if any religion claims some absolute status, they have lost the whole plot. The pathway the religion promote to become spiritual, all the pathways are relative because they have to relate to you. They can never be absolute. The destination is absolute, but the pathways are always relative. That is why they are different, and that's why they are not going to kind of sit well. Different religions are different pathways. None of them are absolute. They are all relative. The destination they're talking about is absolute. And that destination is not something that you to sit down and intellectualize, something to experience for yourself. That's the only way you can validate it. And the reason why it's possible to validate is this. Again, this is pure Ramakrishna. He says, look, only one piece of gold can appreciate another piece of gold. The spiritual experience I'm talking about can be validated in the most dynamic manner because you are the same of the same caliber. You are nothing lower. You are that. That is why you can validate God as a first-hand experience, because you are of equal caliber to God. Look how he dignifies humanity. He lifts the whole of humanity to the level of level of God. You can validate God. It is not a matter of speculation. That is by the way. It is something to experience for yourself. And until you hit this experience, you can never truly appreciate what religions are all about, what spirituality is all about. Again, the aim of life is not to believe and die, but to actually experience this spirituality for ourselves. This person has opened up the doorways of many different pathways for making spiritual progress. He's reconciled them so they are not at loggerheads with each other. He's reconciled them. And he's now offered us a prescription of how, in the modern age, different religions can coexist with full dignity as different relative, not absolute, different relative pathways to reach out to the absolute. So they can sit well together provided they do not impose this idea that their particular religion is absolute. Make the distinction between the pathway and the destination. The pathways are all relative. The destination is absolute. And the only way you can be sure about the destination is if you hit the jackpot yourself, not your prophet, not your textbook. You have to make the journey yourself. It's a very personal journey, and it will lead you to the most dynamic experience. The aim of human life is to experience this spirituality for ourselves. You see, and the variety of different pathways through bhakti, through jnana, become reconciled in the life of this one master who said all these are equally valid pathways. You can't say one is better than the other. The pathway that suits you, suits your own constitution, is the best for you. One lovely example he gave is this. He says, imagine a mother. She's got lots of children, some little tiny toddlers, some grown up. She will cook different food for her children to suit their digestion. For the little baby, she'll kind of mash up the food so they can digest it easily. In the same way, this Mother Goddess offers you different pathways, and you choose the pathway. She'll give you the pathway that suits your constitution, your digestion system. You see this marvelous kind of vision, of broad vision of spirituality, different pathways. And there is one lovely saying with which I'll conclude this talk. As many human beings, that many pathways for making spiritual progress. As many individuals, that many pathways. This infinite God can be realized through infinitely different pathways. No one pathway is better. The path that suits your own individual needs is the best for you. Adopt it and go to your destination rather than fight about which path is better. You see, when we classify various spiritual personalities on the scene, there is a minimum requirement that I insist on. And I always tell our youngsters, please make sure the minimum requirement is fulfilled. The minimum requirement is this: unless the person you are dealing with or interacting with is God realized, you are asking for trouble. It's like blind leading the blind. If your perceptor himself is not God realized, how can he possibly lead you to God realization? It may happen, because you are so devoted, but it's more risky and more difficult. It is very likely that you are taken on a blind tour. So the minimum requirement is that the person that you relate to must be God realized. Now, who passes sentence or who gives marks, credentials to who is God realized? Not me. Why should I take that responsibility? You all have your own rational faculties. Use it to the full to decide for yourself whether a personality is God realized or perhaps is deluded. Sometimes they are self-deluded, and sometimes they are out to delude others. You need to decide. There are certain signs that you can watch out for. One of the most important signs is this: a God-realized person will not just fall back on the scriptures of the ancient times or the teachings of the ancient times. He will come up with a very novel way of presenting spirituality, because it comes from personal experience. It is not book learning. If it is book learning, he'll fall back on the books and say, the scripture says so, Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, he'll keep quoting like that. It's a poor sign, it's a bad sign. I'm not saying that the new teachers have something that is in contradiction with the old scriptures, but I'm saying they will not fall back on it. Once in a while, they might use it for fun, to show a continuity of the process. But otherwise, every time they've opened their mouths, new scriptures formed and presented to mankind, every time. So whenever a personality focuses on just ancient scriptures, watch out, it's a bad sign, it's a poor sign. Here they are here to present a more evolved, more modern, more relevant face of spirituality. First thing, look, this will immediately, a lot of people that you thought were spiritual, you'll immediately feel, well, I think they're just falling back on the scriptures. The only way they can validate the argument is to quote Bhagavad or Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavad Puran. They will keep doing that, nothing more. This is not a good sign. First thing. Secondly, you see to what extent what they see is exactly how they lead their lives. If a person is God realized, he will not be attracted to worldly objectives. Simple rule. How can he be? That means he's really not tested this superb thing called God. And if he has not tested it, he will of course be easily kind of waylaid by name and fame and money, and these things will immediately attract him. So again, he should not have that kind of strong attraction for worldly objectives. This is the second thing. And again, you see, it is really, as I said, I'm throwing the responsibility to the viewers to decide who they think is God realized and who they think is not God realized. I'm not here to pass sentence on anybody. But it's important to bear this in mind. But this is still the minimum requirement for making spiritual. So you could relate to somebody who is God realized. This is the minimum requirement. Otherwise you don't start your journey even. But there is a higher requirement, and I'm going to talk about that. You see, when you come across, there's a marvelous example used in this story of Sri Ramakrishna. He said, suppose you are kind of confined in a room with no windows, everything is closed, and somehow you're able to make a hole in the wall. And I'm sure talking about Indian houses made of mud. I'm not talking about brick houses where you need drill to make a hole. Suppose you manage to make a hole in the wall, and you look out and you see the marvelous blue sky, the infinite blue sky stretching forever, the fields, you see that. And you see, this confined room can never reflect that reality. And you are aware of that reality, and you sing and dance and you get wild because you see this greater reality and you are charged up by it. There are some personalities who reflect that particular perspective. They have had a glimpse of a greater reality. Marvelous they are. Then there are those who make the hole bigger and bigger. They don't just have a little tiny hole where they can just peek through at a greater reality. They like to make a big hole. So they really make, with mud huts, it's possible. So you make a big hole and you go in and out. So So he's able to step out and look at the grand sky and say, wow. And then he's able to step back in. He keeps going in and out. These are the second category of spiritual kind of personalities. Now what is the difference? The first ones are those who are able to experience God for themselves and sing and dance. And all of us watch him and say, what's happened to him? Why is he so excited? Because he's peeked through that hole. And he's excited. But then there are those who are able to kind of stay both in this world and also stay in the world outside, the spiritual world. They're able to step into it at will. At the click of a finger, they can arrive or enter this spiritual realm at the click of a finger. But the story doesn't stop there. If you've only got a small hole, you can just peek through. If you've got a huge hole, not only can you go out, you can hold somebody's hand and take him with you. This is the magic of spirituality. Not just able to see God for yourself or glean a greater reality, but to pass on this experience to others, to be able to take them and lead them to the spiritual realm. This is the kind of category that I am talking about. So it's marvelous to come across spiritual personalities who are God realized and they're dancing and singing and you say, wow, wow, marvelous, it gives us inspiration. Better still is to find somebody who can hold your hand. Ajay, you understand what I'm saying? And pull you through. And there are personalities of that caliber too. And this guy is in that caliber. He himself gave an example. He was not talking about himself. He was very self-effacing, very humble person. He never made any claims about himself throughout his life. Other people would do it and they would smile. He gave an example. He said, you see, when you go to a river, you see various things floating by. You might see little kind of, blade of grass floating by. If you try and hold it and try and swim by holding on to that little blade of grass, you will sink. A little twig passing by. Hold it, you'd sink. There might be a little larger piece of wood and maybe it'll carry one person who can just kind of hang on to it and go across. But then once in a while, you got huge logs flowing past. Huge ones, huge circumference, like the redwoods in the United States. Huge ones floating by. And there are lots of people clinging on to them happily. They can take loads with them, not one or two. Loads can be carried. I'm talking of this kind of huge logs who are able to draw many people across the sea of the ocean of life. These are the marvelous, wondrous personalities who come once in a while, who can not only inspire, but pull us through the nose, put a ring around our nose and pull us through and take us to a greater realm. They're able to drag us into the greater realm. These are these kind of personalities. This is the caliber. Why can I say that? If you classify all the lovely personalities, I'm not putting anybody down, God forbid. You see that around certain personalities, whoever came also became God realized. Some of the main disciples of Buddha were also enlightened personalities, like his main chief disciple Anand. They are illumined personalities. Again, when you look at various spiritual giants of ancient and modern India, you find that around them you find personalities who also could claim first-hand experience of God, who could make that claim happily. Now, we know what personalities came near this great super personality, and how many of them were charged up and managed to find God for themselves. And we started the journey. Last week I said, look, let me start with the first devotees who arrived, with this Dr. Ramachandra Dutt, and so on. So these powerful people started to arrive. And they said this Ramachandra had this dream. In this dream he was given a mantra, and it was like getting a ticket on the internet, print it out, and then you present it when you go to the venue and they let you in. So he took his mantra to Ramakrishna and said, come, give me a mantra back, I'll put you in, I take you in. And this is a real experience, God experience given to a devotee. So this is how the story begins. So we have these super personalities not able to just see God for themselves, but to show God to others. How marvelous can this be? What more can we ask for? Now I'm going to take the story further. Let me before just recap, I like to recap what we have studied. We studied the idea that, you see, the tantric system has been vilified as something that is kind of left-handed and not very wholesome. So we have heard about this tantric philosophy being misused. We also heard that Sri Ramakrishna suggested that the pure idea of Tantra is to get over the idea of attraction and aversion. If you stop polarizing your experience through attraction and aversion, you classify, you take attraction, yes, aversion, no, I don't want it. This is how we all the time interact with the reality, with this world. Always keep classifying, polarizing. If you can rise above this kind of polarization and go beyond it, then you don't say this experience, good or bad, you say experience rather than what is being experienced. You rise above it through the practice of Tantra. This is the whole pure idea of Tantra. There's nothing wrong with it. And you know to what extent he experienced it, to what extent he practiced it. Remember, putting it into practice. This Ramakrishna would sit at the bank of the river Ganga, take a piece of clay, take a rupee, and hardly get any money, but whatever he had. He would say, clay, money, can't see the difference, pour them both in the water. He said, what a waste of money, but never mind. He was practicing Tantra. He couldn't see the difference. He would go in the middle of the night. These are real stories. You see the outcasts who live in little jhuppadpattis nearby, he would go into their houses and clean their toilets. So this idea that I am the upper caste, these are the lower caste, and this is called filth. What filth? Aversion? What aversion? So this idea of Tantra was not just something that he just theorized, he put it into practice in his life, very visibly. So this is, if you like, mastery over the Tantras. Then we see, as I told you, this person is to reconcile various approaches in spirituality in one lifetime. And the story goes further. You see, there has always been this idea of how can Jnana and Bhakti be reconciled. Again, we did the story of how in his life he practiced the Bhakti Marg, variety of different approaches in Bhakti Marg, not just one. Vatsalya Bhav, Shanta Bhav, Madhur Bhav, he practiced all of them, hit the same destination. And he also practiced Advaita Vedanta through Totapuri. This idea that I am essentially that I was searching for. That is my essential nature, spirit, Atman. Both visible in his life, reconciled. There has been one issue that has always been puzzling the philosophers. And again, you see, let me give you some secret about this man. I'm telling you secrets. People have a habit of classifying Ramakrishna, saying that he is a great bhakta. He would fold his hands, humble fellow, living in the Dakshineshwar temple, saying, Mummy, Mother Goddess, Kalima, please bless me, a great devotee of Kalima, bhakta. This is the guise in which we see him. And we hear about this great Vivekananda, this Swami Vivekananda, who is like that, and is full of intellectual acumen. Tremendous supreme personality with tremendous ability to intellectualize. As a gnani, I tell you the secret. In fact, this is exactly wrong. I tell you why even. When you look at him, he is not a bhakta, he is a prakhara gnani. And when you look at Vivekananda, even though he looks like it, look at his eyes, it gives them away. He's a great bhakta, a great devotee. Now why do they switch? Why do they mess about? I tell you why. I've really thought about these guys very hard. If Ramakrishna would, make an appearance, for example, suppose this is his unique feature, tremendous intellect, but Gnana Marg, then you see, if he maintained that guise of being a gnani in this world and continue to associate with us through this physical and mental structure of a gnani, because that is his nature, he will keep slipping out very fast. He won't be able to maintain oneness with the body. He will continue to disappear. He had this trouble all his life. At the mention of God, he would fly off into this highest spiritual experience. In order for him to hang on to this body, he took on the guise of being a bhakta, mummy, just to hang on to the body. And exactly the opposite with the case of Swami Vivekananda. He's a great bhakta, a great devotee. And the only way he can maintain body consciousness is to pretend to be the gnani, the intellectual. They were very clever chaps. But the eyes give them away. Look at these eyes. This is a gnani. Look at Vivekananda's eyes, like lotus. Bhakta. They give it away. See? They use these guises in order to hang on to the body or the mind. You see, you may be surprised. We struggle to think of the spiritual. They struggle to be human. In order to hang on to this human frame, They take on these various guises, various, if you like, pretenses in order to continue to interact with the rest of humanity. Others, they fly off. This is one of the interesting little bit of philosophy I must put in. There has always been this issue about Brahman and Maya. And the idea is this is the classical idea. Brahman is this supreme thing that underpins this reality, and this Maya is the veil, kind of a nuisance, like a mist that covers up reality. And Maya is vilified like that. This was the ancient idea. With Ramakrishna, remember the story of Totapuri? This is what it reflects. It is not that simplistic. There are no two, Brahman and Maya, as two separate entities, one kind of covering up over other. No. You see, it is Brahman alone, which when it shudders, it turns into Maya. And the lovely example Ramakrishna gives, it is like milk and its whiteness. You cannot separate Brahman from Maya. Now let me tell you how this is such a dynamic idea. Let me tell you how easy it is to think about it. I've used this example. A little bit of philosophy I'm going to plug in today. Suppose you are standing in front of a transparent lump of jelly. It's transparent and you are looking into it. Because it's transparent jelly, you see right through it. You have no experience. You can't see. It becomes invisible. If this jelly shuddered, there was a shudder. There are waves set up, and waves acting on waves, interacting, interfering. It becomes visible. Now, it's not that somebody is whacking the jelly to make it shudder. The shudder is within the jelly. It shudders, and this reality comes into being. This is the relation between Brahman and Maya. They are not separate. They are part and parcel. Because we are human, we like to kind of say, here is this substance and this is this attribute, something that covers the substance. No, it is within the substance. It is very much part and parcel of Brahman. It's not a separate entity. They are interrelated. When you see this existence shudders, with a shudder, the universe comes into being. And without this shudder, you can't even experience anything. Forget about God. They are part and parcel of the same entity, like milk and its whiteness. So this idea of classifying them as separate things, Brahman and Maya, and saying, oh, this is good, this is nuisance. Wrong. They are interconnected. And this became visible with Totapuri. He was given a lesson. They are not separate. This has not been given by Adi Shankara or any other great proponent of Hinduism. This came with him. And do you know where I smile? When I talk quantum mechanics in universities. I say, this is what quantum mechanics is teaching you. See this universe? It is nothing. This is how they define the universe. Not made of matter. They guarantee you it's not made of matter. What is in front of you? They define the quantum reality. They say it's nothing but existence that is shuddering. Probability of existence. Wow, shudder. Quantum, physics. So the greatest, he had already, he's starting the work of this quantum stuff because poor chap couldn't add or multiply. Great difficulty. And yet, he presented this marvelous idea. See, I've always struggled. If Brahman and Maya are separate, what is the relationship? This bit of arbitrariness. I don't like arbitrariness. If it is already intertwined, then the arbitrariness goes. It is very much the same thing. Once you look at it this way, you call it Brahman. You look at it this way, you call it Maya. It's the same thing. Shuddering existence. This is reality. Anyway, I'm digressing too much. Let me come back to my story. Now this Ramakrishna is attracting lots of personalities to come and interact with him. He's saying, come my children, come. And the first one who comes is one of the most exciting, most interesting, most unusual characters in the story of Ramakrishna. Remember I told you last time there was a householder disciple who was an atheist, Dr. Ramchandra Dutt, an atheist. And then he became this great devotee who built the first temple of Ramakrishna, printed the first thing, about Ramakrishna was printed by. So marvelous. Now this Ramachandra, see how these various personalities come in touch with Ramakrishna through these very simple, almost casual relationships. Now this Ramchandra Dutt had a little houseboy. This houseboy had come from Bihar. Bihar is the poor part of India. So the people in Bihar, if they want to earn a living, they would go to Calcutta or Bengal where they would find a job. Let me tell you the story of the first person who comes in touch with Ramakrishna, a young boy. Now this young boy was born in Bihar. We don't know exactly when he was born. No, he doesn't know himself. But this young boy, born in Bihar, his name was Rakhe Tu Ram. Ram, as you keep me, I will live. This little chap from a very poor family, his parents had died at a very young age, but he's looked after by a very kindly uncle, and they had given this long-winded name, Raketu Ram. Now you see, if you're a poor person like that, if you have long names, people won't tolerate that. So they'll immediately shorten it. And I have good experience. My real name is Jai Prakash. They turned it into Dilip very fast. So this Raketu Ram was called Latu. Now this Latu was a servant boy in Ramachandra Das's house. And this Ramchandra is excited about Ramakrishna, talking about Ramakrishna in the household, saying, this Ramakrishna, incredible personality. I met him, he's a god on earth. Talk like that. And little boy was listening. He thought, I must see him. I must go and see him. So he kept begging his master, when you go to see him next time, can you kindly take me with you? I want to see this Ramakrishna. A young boy, I think he was 13, 14-year-old at that time. So Ramchandra took him with him one day. And the little boy would sit near the feet of Ramakrishna and look at him. And you see, this man, Ramakrishna, knows who's coming, what is the caliber of all these personalities. So he looked at the little boy and said, Ramchandra, where did you get this fellow from? He asked as if he kind of like he's acquired some equipment. Where did you get him from? I don't know, he's working for me. He's very special, he said. He's got signs which are very special. While he's talking, this Ramakrishna touches the young boy. This is dangerous. Don't let him touch you. You have to find out how. He touches the young boy. He's sitting, listening, Raketu Ram, listening. He touches him. The moment he touches him, this boy shudders. This will happen because all your kind of impurities are immediately being knocked out, and you shudder. You're casting them aside. Your impurities are being cast aside, and your spiritual nature is being unfolding. Is allowed to unfold when a person like this touches you. He touched the boy, and the boy started to shudder and started to shed tears of joy, going like that, shuddering. And Ramchandra said, what are you doing to him? Oh no, I'm just checking him, he said. He's checking his depth. What spirituality lies in the boy. He's testing him. He said, oh yes, very good. He calms him down. He says, please let this boy come here. Whenever you come, send this boy. He is very special. Let him come here again and again. Ramchandra said, no problem. Now this Ramchandra would send, of course, he's the devotee of Ramakrishna, he would send him fruit and flowers and food from time to time. And who will carry the stuff? Of course, this Latu. So Latu said, this is what I love. He would love to take this stuff to Ramakrishna. He's in great fun. And every time he comes, Ramakrishna would ask him some simple question. What do you think of this? What do you think God is doing now? He would ask him, and the boy would say, I have no idea. And the love between this young boy and this master begins to become very warm, very close. Tremendous attachment is developed. Now, one day, Raketu Ram goes to Ramchandra and says, I don't want to work for you. Now, he's a little poor servant boy. He can't survive. He says, I don't want to work for you. I want to live in the temple. So Ramchandra wanted to pull his leg. He said, how will you survive then in the temple? Here you stay, I give little money, food to eat, shelter, clothes, I buy you everything. How will you survive? The little boy is very, very guileless. He said, when I go to temple, they actually give me prasad. I will live on the prasad. And they still won't let him off. They said, but what about a piece of cloth? You need to put some cloth on yourself. What about cloth? Because they don't give clothes in the mandir. And this Raketu Ram said, wouldn't Ram Babu please give me one piece of cloth? He's begging for a piece. And they are laughing. They're saying, oh, poor chap. He said, don't worry, we'll give you a piece of cloth as well. And you can go. They asked. Ramakrishna said, yes, let him stay. The relationship between Latu and Ramakrishna is one of the most unique and one of the most unusual. In later times, Swami Vivekananda said, if you wish to say, somebody would ask me, what is the miracle of Ramakrishna? I'll point at Latu. I said, look at him. He's the miracle of Ramakrishna. Complete rustic, and see what is going to happen. And during that time, Ramakrishna said this. He said, my boy, you don't have to do any learning. Don't need to go to school now. It's too late for you anyway. But day will come when you open your mouth, the purest of Vedas will flow from your mouth. Prediction. And I'm going to, as we go along the story, you'll see what material comes out of his mouth. Even Swami Vivekananda would shudder sometimes. He would put Swami Vivekananda to task. Tremendous material would come out of this illiterate boy, this Latu, a servant boy. Now you see, when they are working together, various things begin to happen. And Latu has this tremendous love and devotion of singing, singing and dancing. He loves, he's a young boy, he loves to dance and loves to sing the glory of God. This pours out of him, and in front of this master, this is allowed to flow. He will use your best characteristic and allow it to flourish so that it becomes spiritual. This is the case with Latu. This is happening, and let me just touch on this idea of this song and dance. I think it's necessary. You see, singing and dancing are some marvelous thing human beings possess to express themselves. These are powerful things we possess. They can be used for our benefit, or they can be used for our detriment. Last night I was at a reception, and there, I've done this myself many a times, I'll be very honest. There, people were getting wine and champagne and things were going. I had to stay, a very close relation, and I had to stay. I was watching all the fun. And as the evening went on, they became more and more drunk, and then the disco music started. So forget about the youngsters jumping and dancing and joining in. The uncles and aunts, the kakas and the masas all jumped in before the youngsters. They were more keen than the youngsters because I think the wine had got to them. And they all with big pot bellies, shirt kind of hanging out, kind of open button like that, the tummy almost popping out, and dancing away like, Travolta or something, going on. I said, give it up, give it up. The power of music and dance can be very positive, it can also be very negative, and I've seen both sides. So this is what I was watching. But the thing is, here Latu is singing and dancing in the name of God. You see, we have not had that experience. When a person who is God established sings, I tell you, we will all jump up and start dancing around him. This was usual thing in the story of Ramakrishna. Hear the sweetest voice. And the thing is, the voice now carries tremendous power of experience, spiritual experience. So the moment he opens his mouth, and even small, light, very sweetest of the voice will come out, it'll catch our hearts and make us stand up and dance about with joy. The whole atmosphere in that little temple garden house, in that little temple, that little room, would get charged up, and people will start swirling. Even people who are very kind of, like that, very kind of, uppity and very kind of stiff, would lose their stiffness. It'll capture them. This is the fun and games going on in that little room of Ramakrishna all the time, day and night. And this Latu is becoming a master at this. One day, Ramakrishna asked Latu, can you go in the Shiva temple and worship Shiva? You see, he knows where the boy comes from and where he belongs. He sent him to the Shiva temple. This Latu, this illiterate young boy from Bihar, goes in front of the Shiva Linga. He offers the, bilva leaves. He sits in front of it, and then we don't hear from him. So Ramakrishna, where is Latu? Somebody is still in the Shiva, the little Shiva temple. Ramakrishna, let me go and inquire. Let me check on my disciple. So he went quietly into the Shiva temple. It's very small temples, they're not huge. Little Shivling there. And Latu is absorbed. He's in front of the image of Shiva. He's upright, stiff, kind of perspiring. You see, sometimes in the process of meditation, this is a bit of a disturbance. Sometimes your body will perspire. You shake and you perspire. First you shake and perspiration will pour out of you. And this boy is shaking and perspiring in front of the image of Shiva. Ramakrishna quickly ran back to his room, got his fan out, came back again with a glass of water and a fan and started to fan the boy. This is reality, not making anything up. Started fanning the boy. And the boy was like that. And after a long time, the boy came out of meditation and saw his master fanning him. And he is such a humble boy, very humble. He said, Master, I should be fanning you. You're not supposed to fan me. This is terrible. I'll get, this standard stuff for Indian boys. I'll get pap, sin. This is sinful. To allow my master to serve me, this is not acceptable. This is horrible. Why are you doing that? Master smiled. Ramakrishna, he said, my boy, I was not fanning you. I was fanning Shiva. You are expressing what Shiva stands for. Depth of meditation. You are established in the depth of meditation. I was fanning Shiva, my boy. You don't get any pap, don't worry. Drink this glass of water. The master serving the disciple. This was the close relationship between Latu and Ramakrishna. He lived with his master throughout his life. And there are stories I'm going to tell when I talk about Swami Vivekananda in a minute. I'll tell you how this Vivekananda relates to Latu. Here is this prakhara, intellectual, and here is this rustic. And you see how they interact with each other. I'm going to talk to you in the later stage of this particular story. But let me talk about Latu a little bit more. You see, he was a very unique character, out of this world. He could not conform to any regulation. Once the master said, how can you go to sleep at night? You should be meditating. That was enough for him. From that day on, he would meditate all night. And later on, even when they started the first, the monastery, and all the brother disciples, in the middle of the night, they'll put the oil lamp out and go to sleep. Everybody go to sleep, 9 p.m., switch off the, snuff out the oil lamps. And then they could hear click, click, click in the middle of the night. They were living in very poor condition. They thought some rats or mice are now beginning to play. It happened every night. So one of the brother decided there's some mischief is going on here. So next day, I'm not going to sleep, I'm going to wait. As soon as that click, click start in the middle of night, he struck a match. And he saw Latu quietly sitting up, doing his meditation, beads, turning his beads. That's why the click, click was coming from. He said, Latu, do you want to surpass all of us? When we sleep, you want to continue meditating? This is not you stay with us, don't go ahead of us. And this is the kind of fun and games. Also, you see, when I tell you some of the stories of Latu, it will touch you. Let me tell you why. When Ramakrishna passed away, he served him to the last day. Now, Latu is not going to conform. He is going to lead a life on his own. He can't even stay in the monastery because he can't conform to anything. So how does he spend his life? When you listen to this is the life of a real, if you like, a realized personality. Latu would sit on the bank of the river Ganga and meditate, spend his days and nights meditating. How would he feed himself? What were his material possessions? Look, if this doesn't bring tears to your eyes, nothing else will. He had one towel, and once in a while somebody would give him a little bit of 1 or 2 paisa with which he would buy chickpeas, dry chickpeas. He would put those chickpeas in the towel, go to the bank of the Ganga, find a rock, and put this towel with the chickpeas under the rock and hold it down. And the river would flow over it, and Latu would sit on the bank of the river and go into deep meditation. When the meditation was over, and hopefully the tide is gone, he would go looking for his towel, pull it out, the chickpeas will become wet and they can be eaten. He would eat it happily. Now you see, we may think, this is poor Latu. Look, we are the poor ones. This guy was in full flow. Chickpeas, what chickpeas? He was eating nectar. For him there was no difference. Establishing God realization, these things are very trivial. He had no difficulty with any of that. He wasn't suffering. We suffer, we go, oh dear. He was in full flow. We never know what he was tasting. Not chickpeas, much more sweeter. And some of the funny story about Latu that makes us smile and laugh and do whatever we like. At night, when sometimes there was a rainy season, where can you find shelter, this Latu? Now in those days there will be kind of lot of compartments, cargo compartments of railway carriages would be in the siding somewhere. So you'll find some railway carriage for transporting cargo with open door. He would say, okay, there's some straw there, I can sleep in there. So he would quietly go into the railway carriage with cargo things and just lie there and go to sleep. And then this Latu told he said, one day I was sleeping and suddenly, I got up with a jolt. They'd actually linked up that particular carriage and taken it to another village, 50 miles away. He got up in another town. Now he doesn't have money. You see, he has no money. Toil is his material wealth. So he said, now how do I get back? The only way I can get back is walk back 50 miles. He said, from that day onward, I decided not to sleep in railway carriage. Too risky. Don't know where you wake up. You see, when you look at the story of this Latu, you see a transformation to the highest level of an ordinary person turning into a great sage. Later in his life, in the final days in his life, he spent his time in Kashi, Banaras. Here, a lot of people will flock to him and ask him very subtle questions, spiritual questions about spirituality. I told you, remember what Sri Ramakrishna had said? pure Vedas will flow out of his mouth. When he opens his mouth, purest of Vedas will flow out. This is what used to happen. Just let me give you one example of the depth of this personality. Somebody said, Maharaj, this life is very burdensome. Look, we all feel it. We may not acknowledge it, but we all feel it. Life is burdensome. So many things, unresolved issues coming up, cropping up all the time. It's very burdensome. How can we make it light? And look at the answer from this rustic. He said, my boy, suppose you dive in the river Ganga. Yeah? You dive deep in the river Ganga. Do you feel the weight of the water? You see, when you are, Archimedes knows, you don't feel any weight. In fact, you have to force yourself to go down. You're not feeling the weight of the water. In fact, you're being pushed up. You have to kind of push yourself down to stay in the water. There's no weight. You don't feel the weight. In fact, you become weightless. So he's using this example. He said, when you dive in the Ganga, do you feel the weight of the water of the Ganga on top of your head? In the same way, when you are floating in the ocean of Satchidanand, the idea of this idea that I am the spirit, what weight? The world appears a mansion of mirth, merriment. Everywhere I look, there is nothing but excitement, spiritual excitement. I live in bliss. What burden, my boy, what burden. When you recognize that you are swimming in the ocean of Satchidanand, your essential nature, the spirit, the world doesn't appear like a burden. It appears like the most pleasurable, most sweetest thing that you can ever experience. Nothing. So this poor guy, whether he's eating chickpeas which are hard or soft, makes no difference. It is all Satchidanand for him. Full bliss. So we look at this classification, good, bad, harsh. For him, it's all sweet. This is what is meant by Brahman, Brahmagnan. See this young boy, a rustic, established in the highest, if you like, spiritual experience. This is just one of the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. I can tell you, all of them were God realized. They were very exciting. All were as different as you can imagine. Each one is different and individual. Let me bring in a second character. As I said, this Ramakrishna used to go on the top of the temple garden house and say, "Oh my children, come to me. I'm fed up of talking to the worldly people. My ears are burning with the talk of their problems. I wish to talk to somebody who understands spirituality." And he was looking for youngsters, full-bodied, full-blooded youngsters to pour out this marvelous message and become the carriers of his message. Because he had now acquired the wealth, the spiritual wealth the modern world requires. And he needed carriers who would take this message into the greater world. So he was pulling them, saying, "Come here, my children." So the story continues. Next we find, you see, look, how do they come? Ramchandra Dutt, who became a disciple, his servant boy became one of the masters, one of the main disciples, a monastic disciple. Next appears on the scene somebody called Rakhal. Now this Rakhal also is linked up with Ramchandra Dutt, he is related to them, and he is married into their family. He is already married at the age of 19 or something. And this Rakhal is introduced to Ramakrishna by the family that he is married into. His in-laws take him there. The last place to take the boy was Ramakrishna. They took him there. So Rakhal was taken, and Ramakrishna again, you see, the moment he sees a youngster, he knows his caliber. He straightway measures where he has come from, what he's all about. Even before Rakhal appeared on the scene, one day when Ramakrishna, you see, for him, Mother Goddess was alive. She would interact with him, come and talk to him. One day was sitting, this is like as if you are sitting like us. And the Mother Goddess appeared, and she had a little baby child little baby in her hand. And she put the little baby in Ramakrishna's lap and said, "This is your son." And Ramakrishna shuddered. He said, "Mother, I'm a celibate, what happened?" Not supposed to have children. And the Mother Goddess smiled. Spiritual son, not a physical one. She was equal to the task. A spiritual son, not a physical one. Don't worry, my boy, you still be a celibate. And then when Rakhal arrived, Ramakrishna said, that is my spiritual son. He was expecting. And in deep meditation, you see, this Ramakrishna could see, when he saw a character, he could see his character, his background, where does he come from, and where he was going to go. He could see it very clearly. So when Rakhal came, he disclosed to somebody else that in deep meditation I saw Krishna as a young baby, almost like a baby, a young child, with anklets, playing with another little boy with anklets, and they were both dancing together in full kind of tremendous love. Two young boys dancing, Krishna and a cowherd boy, singing and dancing to like little children of 2 or 3 years old with anklets, singing and making the anklet sound go jump, 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 and they were dancing together. I saw this. And when I saw Rakhal, do you know what Rakhal means actually, literally? A cowherd boy. It is very strange that the names these people come with, in a way, reflect their character. And Rakhal was aptly named. And you'll soon see when I talk about the third disciple of Swami Vivekananda, you'll see how apt the name is. It's just by chance. They seem to have the right name. So Rakhal means a cowherd boy. So he arrives. You see, when he sees Ramakrishna, he behaves as if, you see, when a son meets the father, there is no formality. They don't do bow down and all that. You don't do that normally. Maybe on festival season or something. Not routinely. You don't keep diving at his feet. Hopefully not. So this Rakhal behaves in this kind of obnoxious manner, kind of irreverential manner with Ramakrishna. He doesn't treat him as if something special, as if he's just like ordinary, And he sometimes would jump and sit on his lap. This 19-year-old boy jumping on his lap. Ouch! He would jump on as if he's his little baby son. He would misbehave with Ramakrishna. But then you see, the flow of spirituality began to be kind of enlightened in this boy. Sometimes he would win a tremendous, just like all of us, all youngsters. He's married and he doesn't like being married, but he's married. And Ramakrishna said, bring your wife here. And he looked at the wife, this Ramakrishna, weird fellow. He looks at the wife and says, don't worry, Rakhal, this is Vidya Maya. She will let you off. And there are some Avidya Maya who will put golden earrings and take you to the Mayfields, drag you there. This one will not. This is Vidya Maya. They will release you. She will help you. She will release you. She won't bind you. You got the right wife. Don't worry too much. This Rakhal was allowed by his in-laws to continue to associate with Sri Ramakrishna. You see, they know what's going to happen, that their daughter is going to pay a price, because this boy is going to leave and join Ramakrishna, become a monk in days to come. And yet, the mother-in-law helped the process. Now, we wish all of us had mother-in-laws like that. She was helping to let the boy off. So Rakhal began to associate with Ramakrishna more and more. His nature was that of a devotee. He's devout, he's a bhakta. Remember, his background is Krishna. So he loves Krishna, he loves Mother Goddess, he loves to sing and dance. And this is his mannerism, pure bhakta. And Ramakrishna encourages him, pulls him closer and closer to him. And in days to come, this Rakhal becomes the first president of the Ramakrishna order. One day Ramakrishna looked at him and said, this boy is capable of ruling a kingdom. And since that day, all the other disciples decided to call him Raja. You are king. And that is how he was addressed. He was called Raja by even Swami Vivekananda. And this is how the second personality enters the story of Sri Ramakrishna. From time to time, the youngster would be very kind of, distressed because all the pressures of, living in a social, living in society, in family would be very overwhelming. He'd come to Ramakrishna in a very depressed mood. Ramakrishna would look at him and say, oh dear, things are bad for you, aren't they? Come here, stick your tongue out. I'm telling you a real story, not exaggerating. And he would stick his tongue out, and Ramakrishna would scribble. I don't know what this guy used to do, but he would scribble something. And the moment he does it, the weight goes off and he says, I can meditate again. Thank you, Master. This is fantastic stories. He lifts them all up, removes their cloud, that's kind of clouding the vision of spirituality, pushes that aside. Rakhal becomes one of the playmates of Sri Ramakrishna. Let me show you how Rakhal connects up with Latu. Remember Latu? They're both now, these are the first and the second disciples of Ramakrishna. One day, Ramakrishna said to Rakhal, Rakhal, give me that beetle leaf, pan, give me that beetle leaf. Just roll it and give it to me. And Rakhal said, no, I don't care for stuff like that. I don't know how to do it. I told you, he was very irreverential, like a naughty boy. No, I can't do it. I'm going, look, I'm telling you, give me that. No, I can't, I won't do it. And Latu was watching. You see, he's Master Ramakrishna. This fellow, how dare he? He said, why can't you do it? You must do it. It's such a simple thing to do. Just roll the betel leaf and give it to the master. Rakhal said, no, if you want to do it, you do it. Now, the big fight ensued between the two disciples. Big fight. They were shouting at each other. One said, how dare you? You can do it. No, I will not. You do it. They're fighting. And Ramakrishna is smiling and watching the fun. He calls somebody from outside, come here, come here. Watch this, two guys having a go at each other. My question to you is, who is a greater devotee? See, he would ask, you do this kind of quiz as well, spiritual quiz. And the person who came in said, he knew the right answer. He said, Rakhal is the greater devotee. Because he feels so close to you, he can be irreverential to you. This guy, Latu, is still struggling. He still sees you distant as the master and the servant, not that close that you are my father. What's the big deal? I'm too close for that. I can tell you no. That was the closeness of Rakhal. Let me go a bit fast forward. What is the relation between this Rakhal and Narendra? I'll talk about the story of Narendra in a minute, but before I do the story, let me show you the relationship between Narendra and Latu. You see, Latu had difficulty in pronouncing the word no from Bihar, so he would pronounce it lo. So he would call, Narendra was called Noren in Bengal. So he said Loren. He couldn't do Noren, so Loren. And so Loren and Latu became very close friends, both at the extreme ends of the spectrum of intellect, complete extreme, and became the best of friends. So they would kind of thump each other back and everything. Tremendous closeness between these two extremes. But one day there was a fight between them as well. I'll tell you how. It's interesting to watch this kind of interaction between different disciples. You see, Ramakrishna was so drawn to Naren or Loren in terms of that he needed to see him from time to time. I'm going to do the story of Naren in a minute, but this I must bring it a bit in advance. If Naren doesn't come to visit Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna goes to visit Naren. He can't live without him. Tremendous attraction toward Narendra, Vivekananda. So one Vivekananda was studying for his exams at university, sitting for his degree exams, and he's studying, and he's upstairs in the upstairs room, and suddenly he hears a commotion, some noise. Ramakrishna had taken his Latu to come and visit Narendra. And then he is trying to climb up the steps in his kind of God intoxicated state. He's trying to climb up. And as soon as Narendra comes out of the door, opens the door and looks down, Ramakrishna looks at and went into Samadhi there, in the middle of the steps. Standard stuff. He went into Samadhi halfway up the steps. And Latu is hanging on to him. And though he topple over, he's hanging on to him. And Narendra speaks English and says, idiot, comes and makes a mess here. He's calling Ramakrishna idiot. And this Latu doesn't understand English. He said, what does idiot mean? If it means something rude, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to beat you. Then I said, no, it means something very good. Don't worry. Let's pull this old man in before he topples over. But this was the love and relation between this Naren and this Latu. Both at different extreme. One intellectual giant, other one couldn't bother. What did you call him? What did you call Ramakrishna? Tell me, I'm going to beat you up. That relation. This is Latu and this is Naren. This Latu, he spent his last days in Kashi, and lots of pandits, lots of great devotees would crowd around him. And he spent his days dishing out the spirituality that his master had given him. The lovely material, the most kind of modern vision of spirituality came out of his mouth. When you look at his teachings, it is thrilling. It is without any guilt. There is no guilt. It's very blunt, very raw, and very direct. One person said, I keep getting lustful thoughts. What should I do? He said, look, I tell you what. See this image? Just focus your mind on this image. It will all disappear. This is the most potent image. It will remove it for you. He would give a blunt example. He would give talk like that, very bluntly. In the final days, some of the senior Swamis of the Ramakrishna mission would come and visit him in Kashi and reverentially touch his feet. Somebody said, but you are a senior Swami. He's a junior. He's not even belong to the Ramakrishna. He lives separately. Why do you touch his feet? And the Swami was very humble. He said, do you know why? He's younger than me in age. He's younger than me in terms of the authority of the Ramakrishna order. But he's the most senior of us because he's the first one to become the disciple of Ramakrishna. He's the most senior of all of us because he's the first disciple of Ramakrishna. That's why we touch his feet. He lived in this majestic state, couldn't be bothered about anything. Many years he lived, do you know with what? His other possession that he had in later life, apart from this towel, was a teapot. Boil tea, drink tea, that's it, live on it. I'm not saying that rest of us should follow, it's very difficult. He lived so simply and yet lived so magically. That is why he's the miracle of Ramakrishna. So now this Narendra is strongly attached to Ramakrishna because you see, he says he has found a place where spirituality can be experienced firsthand. Somebody who can dish out spirituality becomes closely attached to Sri Ramakrishna. Now the way Ramakrishna is training Narendra is quite unusual. You see, with others he would say, okay, Rakhal, sing and dance. Latu, serve me. Look after me, that's your job. With Narendra, he pulled out Ashtavakra Samhita. Ramakrishna knows all this stuff. He's unlettered, but he knows all the key scriptures of the Hindu tradition. He pulled out the Ashtavakra Samhita. Now, if any of you have studied Ashtavakra Samhita, if it doesn't thrill you, this is the height of Advaita Vedanta. Advaita, purest of Advaita. There is no room for Dvaita there. It's the most severe. You know, one of the critical comments is that the only limitation you have is you think you are limited. This is how it starts. You know, the only meditation you need is no meditation. You are that already. There's no room for all this meditation nonsense. This is the way Advaita kind of Ashtavakra goes. It's a very high-powered philosophy. Very few people will get close to Advaita Vedanta or to the idea of Ashtavakra. But see, look, just to show you what is this Advaita all about. We hear about it that this unity that kind of links all of us is what Advaita is all about. You may think it's theorizing. It is not theorizing. You actually can experience Advaita. I'll give an example. When Ramakrishna had practiced Advaita with Totapuri, recognized his identity with this underpinning to this universe called Brahman or Atman, in that state, you know, when he was still in that mood, I tell you real example, you feel so much at one with the whole of the creation, that if you look at somebody, you feel one with that person. I'll give an example. One of these days, in this state of Advaita, when Ramakrishna was standing near the bank of the river Ganga, two fishermen kind of came, stopped their boat, and they were having a quarrel. Now Ramakrishna was watching and associate linking with that. They were having a quarrel. And one fisherman, you know, they are rough and ready. One fisherman got fed up and really smacked the other on the back really hard. You can hear the smack, boom, right across the bank of Ganga. Smacked him really hard. The moment he heard, Ramakrishna went, ouch! And his, Bane, Hriday came running. What happened, Mama? What happened? He said, I'm hurt. So Hriday, looked at the back. It was swollen and red. He could actually experience what that fisherman was getting. Because he became one. Wouch! It transferred, physically transferred. The unity or the linkage that we have with the rest of creation is not just verbal. It is not just intellectual. It is real. You feel that. So whenever Ramakrishna in that mood, he is very delicate. You can hurt him. If you hurt anybody, you hurt him. Especially if he looks at him, he's hurt. I tell you how extensive this is. Sometimes, when you would look at the grass in the temple garden, the grass, just ordinary grass, and somebody is mowing the grass, cutting the grass. If you look at it, or somebody stepping on the grass, stepping on it, you go, oh, as if somebody is stepping on his chest. You have to take him away. So this Advaita is not just a mere intellectualizing. You actually can experience. And now, Narendra was the perfect candidate for Advaita. He has come to present that to the world. And it was necessary to train him. So the book that Ramakrishna took out to teach his disciple is Ashtavakra Samhita. People would shudder. Nobody has heard the name. I tell you, if you want a thrill of your life, this is the most thrilling text of the Hindu tradition. I would say far more dynamic than the Upanishads. It still stays in the background because it's so severely Advaita. There is no room for Dvaita. Nothing. It's purest Advaita. So Ramakrishna started telling Vivekananda, you have to study this. Vivekananda said, no, I couldn't be bothered. And he's like that. He's very rude to his master. Calls him old man, fool, idiot. Look, We are not supposed to copy him and tell our teacher stuff like that. But he was very rough. So he said, nah, I'm not going to study. Then Ramakrishna said, look, can you read it out to me? I want to hear it. That's the excuse. So that boy has to read it. He said, read it out to me. I want to listen to it. So he read out. And he would hate, but he would start reading. And he would turn his page and read, unhappily, keep reading. The thing that comes out in Advaita is essentially all this is manifestation of the same one appearing as many. So Vivekananda threw the book aside. This is nonsense, he said. This is nonsense. He went out and there was somebody equally kind of ridiculing Ramakrishna sitting outside. He found him. His name is Hajra. This old man is mad. He's asking me to read this book. It must have been written by equally mad people. In the book it said, this pot is Brahman. This water is Brahman. This glass is Brahman. Now how ridiculous can you be? Everything is Brahman. How can everything be Brahman? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read. Must be written by some mad people. And he was making fun of Ramakrishna and Ashtavakra Samhita and Advaita Vedanta. This is Vivekananda, classic Vivekananda. He fought his master. He lived with his master for 6 years. These 6 years were real fun, sparks between the master and the disciple, real sparks, no hesitation. He said, what stupid thing this book is teaching about. This jug is Brahman, this glass is Brahman, this water, they're different, they're saying Brahman. They're asking me to believe that, and they said this is the height of philosophy written by mad people. And while they were laughing and making fun of it, Ramakrishna came out of his room, smiling, came near, standard stuff for Ramakrishna, and touched him. Don't do that, don't let him do that. Touched him. So Narayan said, I don't know what happened, but after he touched me, I looked around and I realized that everything is same. Everything is made of the same material. Same thing becoming manifest as all this different world. He said, I'll keep quiet. I see to how long this experience continues because I don't trust this experience. Maybe just temporary problem with my brain. He was like that. I'll just keep quiet and see how long this experience lasts. He went in that state of mind home. When he went home, he felt that his body was not his own. It was somebody else's. Because he was kind of in a dazed mood. And his mother put some food on the plate and he would start eating. He said the food and me and the body is same. He can't distinguish. And still eating. So sometimes he would eat too much. He won't stop. Because he can't feel his body. He doesn't know his body is full now. He would keep eating. And they have to snatch the plate away. He said, enough. Or sometimes you don't eat at all. This went on. He would walk on the street. Look, these are his words. He said, I would walk on the street and I would see the horse and carriage rushing towards me. Now, normally we kind of duck. We walk away. We don't stand in the front and embrace the horse and carriage. He said, I would stand in front of it because I can't see. I see the same thing. This and that is same. He doesn't want to take himself away. He said, somebody to pull me away, otherwise I'll get killed. He said, then I would go near that particular garden or whatever and I would see the railings. And I would hold the railings because it's when you look, imagine when you're having Advaita experience, you hold the railing but you think somebody else is doing it. It's not for real, like shadow. One shadow holding another shadow. He said, I would hit my head on it, on the railing to see if it's real. Because the whole thing appears one. He said, this experience lasted for many days. And then I put my hand and said, this Advaita is not nonsense. It can be experienced. With a touch, Ramakrishna got the highest experience in the most simplest words. One day, this Vivekananda went to Ramakrishna and said, look, I want to be established in God realization and find mukti. I want to be released from this bondage of this life and become one with divine spirit. Please, please bless me so I get salvation, if you like the English word. Bless me so I do that. Ramakrishna looked at him in a very sad way. Oh dear, I didn't expect you would sink so low. Sink so low? Asking for salvation, Brahmagnan, in Ishwaragnan? I didn't think you'll sink so low, said Ramakrishna. Look at the language of the master. My boy, you are not here. This is like a beggar. This is so petty of you. You are not here for your own salvation, my boy. You are here for the salvation of whole of humanity. Why are you asking for such trivial thing? See? He lifted the student to his level, and that is why he was preparing this boy for greater work. I told you he has come to present the most comprehensive vision of spirituality, and Ramakrishna is aware that the aspect of spirituality that will engulf the whole world, not India, the whole world, is Advait, giving dignity to humanity, lifting humanity to the level of God. This is the new vision of spirituality suited to this age. And Ramakrishna knew who is the carrier of this particular message. So he was preparing his tool, sharpening his tool. This Vivekananda was being prepared, turning into a very powerful tool of Advait, this vision of spiritualizing humanity. New word, spiritual humanism. You are special not because you are a lump of matter, but you are the most clearest vision of spirit on earth. Divinity of mankind, not reserved for just some ascetic who goes and meditates in the caves, but for the whole of humanity. It had to be comprehensive, made available to the whole of humanity, not just to some few select. For this, he was training his disciple. And Vivekananda said, okay. But again, Ramakrishna would test Vivekananda too. And he would say, now you see, I got this mother goddess, I did this tantra, I got this Ashta Siddhi, all these magical, miraculous powers, siddhis, and you're going to do great work for me in the future. So why don't I pass them on to you? Narayan said, keep it to yourself. I just want the highest, I don't want all this magic business. I want the highest experience. I don't want your siddhis. And Ramakrishna would smile. His student is ready. He was not going to get digressed easily. He is the right material. And this relationship continued. At later stage, Ramakrishna started to suffer from cancer. It's time for him to pass away, give up his body. At this time, well, I will not talk about that part, but during this part, one day he called Vivekananda to him. He said, come here, my boy. I'm going to become a true fakir, a true ascetic today. Everything I've acquired, I wish to pass on to you. You are going to inherit, if you like, my spiritual wealth. And Swami Vivekananda said, I was sitting in front of him and I could feel tremendous, like a power coming from his body, entering my body, and went into deep meditation. In one of these days, when Swami Vivekananda was one day practicing meditation and Ramakrishna was suffering, sitting upstairs in the room, and Vivekananda was struggling to meditate and close his eyes and go into deep meditation, suddenly, if these are his words, it's nice to hear what spiritual experience is all like. He said, I suddenly felt a light at the back of my head. Suddenly, imagine like this, and you suddenly see a light coming out from the back of your head and slowly engulfing your whole system, and you go into deep meditation. These are his words. I was feeling the highest bliss. The body sensation had disappeared. The idea, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the highest meditation, was what he achieved. And then, when he wanted to come back into the normal state, suddenly he could not find his body. I'm telling you, these are his words. He said, I started shouting, hey, where's my body? The mouth is speaking, we can't feel the body, he can't feel the mouth. He's screaming, hey, brothers, where is my body? So the brothers, disciples ran up to Ramakrishna and said, this guy is asking, where is his body? And Ramakrishna said, let him be like that. He's been bothering me all his life for this experience. Let him sit like that for a little bit more. Don't rush. Leave him like that. You see, what Ramakrishna had promised, he had delivered. He is producing this powerful weapon of spirituality suited to the modern age. He produced a fireball called Swami. You see, look, here is this Ramakrishna, appears very rustic, laid back, hardly went outside his temple. In the little house, temple room, he stayed all his life. And yet he was molding the little room, he was molding various personalities who are going to change the face of spirituality and the face of modern religion. He was molding them, preparing them. And of course, the most masterful preparation was his master disciple, this chief disciple called Vivekananda. Here is a fireball he created. And the fireball is not meant for India. It is meant for the greater humanity, for the world. A modern proponent of religion can never look after the interests of just one brown-skinned people of one subcontinent, of the subcontinent. It must be relevant for the whole world. Otherwise, he is not truly a spiritual giant. He's still, if you like, a little kind of a minor phenomena just for the Indian subcontinent. He was not meant to do that. So he was preparing the tool that will universalize his message, not meant just for the Hindus in India, but for the whole of humanity. And this messenger, this fireball, is called Vivekananda. He picked it up, prepared it, and threw it to the West. He knew he was going to come to the West. So the preparation has begun. I'm going to stop there for the moment. You see, I'm just giving you small snippets of some of these marvelous personalities. If you examine their lives and see the kind of depth of their experiences and the kind of variation, you see, we can all learn from all of them. Because the trials and tribulations and the way they interacted with this great master, in a way, is our trials and tribulation, because we face the same issues that they faced. How to experience God, what are the obstacles? They were facing the same issues that we face. In fact, I'm going to do now a short story about a householder disciple. I already talked about the monastic disciples, and I talked about Latu, talked about Rakhal, and talked about Narendra, Swami Vivekananda. I'm now going to just touch on the life of one of the household disciples, but we'll expand and there are so many very interesting personalities. I'll just give you some names like Girish Chandra Ghosh, Mahendranath M., the author of the Gospel of Ramakrishna. We'll talk about it in the later session. I'm going to do a session today. And one of the household disciples, who is really very thrilling, just as Narendra is perhaps the king of the monastic disciples, this gentleman can be called the king of the householder disciple of Ramakrishna. So I'll just touch on this life. It's a big... Look, when I studied it the first time, I'm not making it up. Actually, I had tears. I'll tell you why. I realized my shortcomings. To be a householder disciple of Ramakrishna, the amount of dedication required, the amount of discipline required, that it becomes visible in the life of this particular gentleman, made me feel so inadequate. Means I feel I'm nowhere near. You feel that, oh, what is this? What is this? It is that dramatic. Let me do the story. This is the story of somebody called Nag Mahashay, or Durga Charan Nag. He lived in East Bengal. Again, came from a very poor family. Lost his mother at a very young age. His father is nice, but a little bit mean, a little bit tough, and he carries on with his father. Now, for him to continue with his studies, they found that the only school available was 10 miles away from his village. 10 miles. So the kindly aunt said, you can't travel 10 miles, 10 miles, and we don't have enough money for you to be able to stay in this place where there is a school. We don't have the money. And the only way you can study is 10-mile travel, and it's always walking. What else in that part of the world? So he said, it's going to be difficult, so give up your study. He said, no. He was a very focused gentleman. And you know what was the most unique feature about this personality that touched me? His steadfastness to truth. He will not compromise. And Ramakrishna says, in this age, the only discipline you require to become spiritual, only one discipline you require is steadfastness to truth. If you are established in truth, everything else will come to you. Just be established in truth. It will change your life forever. And when I look at the life of this Nag Mahashay, I see that here is a man established in truth. What do I mean by this? It doesn't mean that you go into a philosophic debate regarding what is ultimate truth and try and define. No. You basically make sure that you lead a life that complies with your own concept of truth. That's all. We all have an idea of what is true and what is not true, what is right, what is wrong, provided you are able to control your life, harness your life so that you do not overstep the mark and continue to maintain what you think is truthful, that is enough. That's all it says. And yet we fail. I fail all the time. It is so difficult because in the name of diplomacy, through carelessness, you say things which you can't do. Like I'll tell you, I'll meet you tomorrow. I don't know, but I keep saying things like that. These are not right. And this Nag Mahashay was a stickler. That was a little boy, stickler. You'll soon find out how when I do the story. Stickler. So he said, no problem. 10 miles, not a problem. This boy used to walk 10 miles to go to school and walk back home 10 miles from school. 10 miles each way, just to study. He wanted to study medicine. All the doctors turning up. Don't know, they're attracted to Ramakrishna somehow. So, and of course they didn't have money to medicine. He took on homeopathy because that's the easiest thing he can do in the village. Homeopathy, kind of herbal medicine. He learned that, mastered that. And then the father and son decided to move to Calcutta for business. So set up a little clinic there. Now this Nag Mahashay is a unique doctor, homeopath. He would treat the patient and charge them the minimum. Because the cost of the herbs are this much, and the cost of just continuing for me to survive is this much. So this is my fee. He lived on the minimum. From time to time, he would find a patient who can't pay the fee. Of course, he can't pay for the medicine. Nagma said, not a problem. He said, no fee, I'll treat you for free. Does he stop there? No. This is India, Calcutta, what do you expect? He gets patients who can't not only pay for the medicine, they don't have enough to eat. So Nag Mahasaya calls them to his clinic, gives them free medicine and gives them money to buy food. Now the father is getting agitated. His name is Din Dayal. He gets agitated. This boy, what is going to ruin us? This is not the way of running business. In fact, every Lohana father will deliberately stop his son from running of Sindhi, I'm pretty sure. This is not the way of doing business. So he used to get agitated, very worried. This boy is going to sell our house and home. What is he doing there? At the same time, you see, this part of the story I forgot to perhaps mention. This Din Dayal wanted his son to get married. And the son with folded hands said, Father, don't put me in hell. I don't want to marry. Father said, no. He's a very, boy who listens to his father. No, you have to get married. And what's the reason for Din Dayal insisting? Because he wants to continue with the lineage, kind of a continuity of the family tree. So this is the reason why he's pressurizing him. In a way, this is a sad thing. That somehow we think that we can get, eternal life if we can leave some seeds behind. They continue to flourish. It is silly completely, but this is how most human beings think. That somehow they will maintain a continuity if they have a lineage that carries on. So this Dinah, you get married, forced him. Again, real story. This is in the village before they came to Calcutta. So he was married against his wishes. But this boy could not stand the idea of physical contact. He never able to stand the contact by a woman. Look, again, a modern youth, forget it, you stand no chance. That's why I said I felt myself highly inadequate when I saw this, when I read this story. So this is real story, you make you laugh and at the same cry and say, what to do with this boy? So he's married, his wife is in the bedroom, this guy doesn't go in the bedroom, he doesn't sit outside on the veranda even, he can't risk it. He climbs a tree and sits on the branch at night. I'm not making it up. So all night he spent on the branch. I don't know how he must be hanging on to the tree just not to fall off. Just to protect him, make sure the wife doesn't come out and touch him, he climbs up. Every night he's sleeping like that. This was going on. And then, you see, the story says, suddenly the wife died. So he said, hurry, I can come down the tree now. I wish the wife a long life, but this is what happened. But do you think Din Dayal will be happy? He said, no, second wife. Standard in India. Your wives come and go. So second wife. He forced again with folded hands, said, Father, don't make me do this. No, my son, this order. You are my son. Remember the scriptures. Obey me. Second time. But this time the wife was helpful. The first one would have knocked him out. The second one was helpful. She recognized the greatness of the soul and never bothered him. Stood by him, helped him. And all was a steadfast help throughout the rest of his life. The second wife stood by. Now, during this process, while he was treating some patients, there was a rich patient he treated. The patient was very seriously ill, about to die, and he recovered. And the patient was so pleased. Normally, he struggles to get his money. Here he came with a basket full of silver coins. This is ancient India, 100-year-old India. So silver coins will be available. Whole basket offers. And Din Dayal is watching, his mouth watering. We are doing well today. And this, Nag Mahasaya looked at the money and said, this is not my fee. My fee is so many rupees, some kind of trivial amount. Take the coins back. And Deen Dayal is jumping up and down, you see. He sent the money away, took a few rupees, that's my fee. Thank you. I can't take more than what I deserve. See, I told you, stickler for truth. Can't do it. It just goes against my moral fabric. Can't do it. And then they are mad. I'm doing the funny story because you see the depth of this person. He said, what are you trying to do? Now you see, if you're Gujarat, you would say, bhukhe marsu, bhukhe marsu, you know. Then you're going to die of starvation. But in Bengal, they do it different language. They say, what will you do? You'll be kind of naked and you'll be living on dead frogs. Means you no clothes to wear and eat dead frogs. That's the way you sustain yourself. That's the language they use in that part of Bengal. That's what I read in the book. The moment he said that, what will happen now? You will have to live naked and on dead frog. The moment he said this, I told you this guy is a stickler. He took off his clothes, went to the garden, found a dead frog and started to eat it. He ate it and he said, Father, I fulfill your wishes. I am free. You see, this is a real story in our world. You know, this is Nag Mahashaya, unusual character. Now you see, time has come for him to meet his master. So one of the disciples, or the disciple I have talked about, took him to visit Ramakrishna for the first time. And he sits with folded hands at the feet of Ramakrishna. Again, Ramakrishna, like Latu, he looks and says, oh dear, what have you brought here? It's a fire full of renunciation. What have you brought here? Renunciation and nothing else here. Blazing fire of renunciation. What a marvelous personality. And then Nag Mahashaya said, Maharaj, please, can you make me a monk? I would like to become a monk. And Ramakrishna said, look, you are very special. You are going to tell the world how you can lead a householder's life and yet be spiritual. I want you to continue to lead a householder's life. You will be the best example of a householder who leads a spiritual life. You will be that example. So I am ordering you not to become a monk. Stopped him. You see, Ramakrishna gave different instruction to different youngsters who came to him. So Nag Mahashaya said, you carry on. You are the perfect example. So Nag Mahashaya continued his own way. Deen Dayal jumping up and down, and life carried on. But he was such a lovely, gentle person. He could never utter a ill word towards anybody. Even if they mistreated him, he could never say ill about anybody. And if anything slipped out of his mouth, he would pick up again, don't try it at home. He would pick up a stone and hit his head, saying, how dare you be nasty to someone? Why did you use that critical comment? He would hit himself with a stone. There was a story in Harry Potter or something. There was a character who was doing that, wasn't it? So this Nag Mahashaya was doing stuff like that. And somebody had to take the stone away from him, otherwise he'll keep bleeding. His life was like that. And you see, if, for example, he lived in a thatched hut where the roof would keep leaking every monsoon, the roof would be leaking, you would keep repairing it again and again. But this Nag Mahashaya cannot give trouble to anybody. So he would, the wife would wait. When he's gone out, she would find a roofer, come here quickly and repair before he gets back. Because he can't trouble anybody, even if you are paying him. You can't trouble anybody. So one day, the roofer had gone up and was trying to, and Nag Mahashaya kept, he's doing so much for us. This is not on. He climbed up. He said, look, I will do it. You come down. And I'll make a hookah for you and have something to eat and drink. And I'll fan you and I give you money for coming. I'll sort it out. Sorry to have given you so much trouble. So he's giving him money while he's doing his work and fanning him and offering him tea and saying sorry. You see, this is Nag Mahashaya. Can a person like that be alive? Could he have lived? Think. Incredible. This was his whole life. His mannerism was incredible. Example of a householder's life. Now you see, time has come for him to meet his master. So one of the disciples, or the disciple I have talked about, took him to visit Ramakrishna for the first time. And he sits with folded hands at the feet of Ramakrishna. Again, Ramakrishna, like Latu, he looks and says, oh dear, what have you brought here? It's a fire full of renunciation. What have you brought here? Renunciation and nothing else here. Blazing fire of renunciation. What a marvelous personality. And then Nag Mahashaya said, Maharaj, please, can you make me a monk? I would like to become a monk. And Ramakrishna said, look, you are very special. You are going to tell the world how you can lead a householder's life and yet be spiritual. I want you to continue to lead a householder's life. You will be the best example of a householder who leads a spiritual life. You will be that example. So I am ordering you not to become a monk. Stopped him. You see, Ramakrishna gave different instruction to different youngsters who came to him. So Nag Maharshi said, you carry on. You are the perfect example. So Nag Maharshi continued his own way. Then they are jumping up and down, and life carried on. But he was such a lovely, gentle person. He could never utter a ill word towards anybody. Even if they mistreated him, he could never say ill about anybody. And if anything slipped out of his mouth, he would pick up look, again, don't try it at home. He would pick up a stone and hit his head, saying, how dare you be nasty to someone? Why did you use that critical comment? He would hit himself with a stone. There was a story in Harry Potter or something. There was a character who was doing that, wasn't it? So this Nag Maharshi was doing stuff like that. And somebody had to take the stone away from him, otherwise he'll keep bleeding. His life was like that. And you see, if, for example, he lived in a thatched hut where the roof would keep leaking every monsoon, the roof would be leaking, you would keep repairing it again and again. But this Nag Maharshi cannot give trouble to anybody. So he would, the wife would wait. When he's gone out, she would find a roofer, come here quickly and repair before he gets back. Because he can't trouble anybody, even if you are paying him. You can't trouble anybody. So one day, a roofer had gone up and was trying to, and Nag Maharshi kept, he's doing so much for us. This is not on. He climbed up. He said, look, I will do it. You come down. And I'll make a hookah for you and have something to eat and drink. And I'll fan you. And I give you money for coming. I'll sort it out. Sorry to have given you so much trouble. So he's giving him money while he's doing his work and fanning him and offering him tea and saying sorry. You see, this is Nag Maharshi. Can a person like that be alive? Could he have lived? Think. Incredible. This was his whole life. His mannerism was incredible. Example of a householder's life. So here he lives in that particular state of mind. Things are going on well. You see the love and the spirituality that becomes enlightened in his life. Tremendous dedication to Ramakrishna. You see, now Ramakrishna is his master, his guru. He visits him from time to time when nobody is there to get instructions, to sit at his feet. Again and again they visit. Now let me tell you how dramatic this is. If, for example, on one day they were saying, okay, here is some food for you. He said, it's 11th day of the lunar month. I'm not eating today. Oh, Ramakrishna, I know what to do. I'll eat some. This is prasad. Now we see, Nag Maharshi, Maharaj, prasad. So they're given a leaf plate, banana leaf plate, they give prasad. So he said, eat this. Nag Maharshi said, this is fantastic. This is nectar. He gobbled up the prasad and he gobbled up the leaf. This leaf has touched the prasad. It cannot be cast away. Swallow it. One day, one other disciple, through Ramakrishna, gave him a blanket. Now you don't give this man a blanket, because when he said, it's come from the great man himself. So he put the blanket, normally the blanket you wear around or he put it on his head and started wandering about with the blanket on his head, because it must be given the right place, on top of my head. Weird to the, incredible character. All his life, tremendous humility, tremendous love of humanity, tremendous power of celibacy visible in the life of this marvelous personality. Let me show you the link between Narendra and Nag Maharshi. Here is the chief amongst the monastic disciples of Ramakrishna, and here is the chief amongst the householder disciple of Ramakrishna. How do they link up? How do they relate? Every time Nag Maharshi saw Vivekananda, he would fall flat on his, on his tummy, Dandavat, and say, today I've seen Shiva, bless me. And Narendra said, okay, calm down. Very unusual relationship. And there was another disciple I'm going to talk about called Girish Chandra Ghosh. One day he classified both of them. And look at the classification. He said, you see, this world that we live in, this kind of difficult world that we live in can be, this wrong image we have about the world can be broken in two ways. Either You see, in order for you to break free from this network of illusion, either you become bigger and bigger and bigger so that the net cannot hold you anymore. You break the net. And this is what Vivekananda has done. He grows in stature, the spiritual stature, that nothing holds him down. He's able to see, experience himself with the spirit. All illusions are cast aside. He breaks free from that net of illusion. This is one way of escaping, of becoming spiritual, Vivekananda. Then he looked at Nagamarsha, and there is a second way you can kind of escape the net of illusion, said Girish Chandra Ghosh. Rather than become bigger and bigger and bigger like Vivekananda, you become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. You become so small that you go through the net. This is Nagamarsha. To be, this is not arrogance, but to grow in stature, recognize your divinity, is one way of breaking free from this kind of very limited existence we have. And the other way is to become smaller than the small, humbler than the humblest. And this was not made up. In later life, when Nagamarsha ever visited Belur Math, and Vivekananda would call all the disciples, come here. Today, bow down. This is the example of a true householder. Because here, nothing is pretense. He means it. You saw his life, the way he would gobble up a plate. In the future, whenever he was offered any food on a plate, they would give him the food and they snatch the plate and run away. Otherwise, he would swallow it. You're fanatic. But what a fanatic. By becoming humbler than the humblest, he manages to sneak through and discover his identity as the spirit. Two major pathways, bigger than the biggest, smaller than the smallest. Where do we get this from? From Kathopanishad. The spirit is bigger than the biggest. It is you can either call him as infinite or you call him infinitesimal. Both are the ways of escaping the relative world that we live in and touch base with our infinite nature. Now, every time I start, I do a little bit of recap so that people who are perhaps just joining in the television series can get an idea of what we are talking about. We are talking about one of these great modern proponents of Hinduism, a spiritual giant that became visible in India about 150 years ago, a spiritual giant. And yet his uniqueness is his ordinariness. If you look at his image, nothing appears extraordinary. It appears so ordinary that he is in fact difficult to discern. People don't realize what he stands for and what power he comes with. Now see, every time I start, I try and present some of the unique features of this personality. He comes with this marvelous idea that religions are different pathways for exploring or discovering spirituality. Different religions and different movements within different religions are different ways of exploring a broad idea of spirituality that underpins this reality, exploring the depth of what is this all about. That is all it is. He recognizes, you see, in one life, he's able to, kind of experience spirituality using variety of different modes promoted in the Hindu tradition, as well as in non-Hindu tradition. This has not happened in the history of mankind. It is highly unusual. Let me just give a glimpse of what this is all about. You see, when we experience spirituality, we can only do so using our human goggles. We cannot leave our goggles. We can never actually experience the absolute in absolute terms. We have to use some relative framework to relate to the absolute. That's the interface between us and spirituality or this idea of spirit. The interface is not absolute. It will show up in a very unique manner in the sense that every time a proponent of spirituality talks about God or saying, he may use different language, different vocabulary, different metaphor. This is not because he is mistaken. It's simply that this is the best framework he possesses in his particular period to present the idea of spirituality. So some would see burning bushes, some would talk to angels, some would say enlightenment, Buddha. Some would see gods and goddesses, all acceptable. These are different formats people use to relate to the absolute. Now we can never be sure that they are talking the same experience unless we find one individual who says, yes, I've used this variety of different modes of exploring spirituality. Say the Bhakti Marg of the Hindus, the Gnana Marg, the variety of Bhakti Marg. We have used that. We used the idea of Raj Yoga. We used the idea of Tantra. We used the idea of Islam. We used the idea of Christianity, and we discover the same. We hit the same destination. The same experience is visible at the end of at the conclusion of his journey. Very unique phenomena. And this has is becoming visible, and its relevance is becoming visible in the modern time, because we face a world where there is tremendous struggle and strife in the name of religion. And even within the same religion, there's a lot of friction within the same religion. If you are in Islam, there's Sunnis and Shias and Sufis, and there is a lot of pressure. Same in the Christian tradition, same in the Hindu tradition. There's a variety of different approaches. They don't sit well together. And the resolution of all these issues lies with this gentleman who talks of pluralism. Pluralism. This is a nectar-like word. Now you see, we have been promoting it as Vivekananda Center, as Hindu Academy, and it is really entering the system in no uncertain manner. The word is becoming pluralism. The word is becoming very visible. The World Congress of Faith this year set up the start of saying affirming religious pluralism is the title of this year's activities. Affirming religious pluralism. This language is used in the academic circles now. It is widely available. And without the word pluralism, you can no longer talk of religion. You need to have that as well. Now, what does pluralism mean? We may think, does it mean that all religions are same? That will be a very foolish conclusion. It never said anything of the sort. It never said all religions are same. It simply said there are different pathways for exploring spiritual, and the pathways are different. They are not the same. This is such a silly idea, such a superficial idea to call all religions same. They are not same. The only thing we are saying, the destination is same, but the pathways are unique and different. And again, it never said that one pathway is better than the other. This is the maturity of pluralism. It recognizes the pathway that suits your own digestion is best for you. So it doesn't, some people say, but Dilip, when you talk pluralism, that means that you are giving permission for people to be converted from Hinduism into other religions. I say, I never did that. We never do that. To the contrary, we say it is, the language of Swami Vivekananda says, conversion is a perversion. If a person is born and brought up in a particular tradition, in the Hindu faith or in any other faith, or a particular, if you like, sectarian movement in the faith, let it be. That is the path that will suit the requirement of that individual. Let him progress in that particular path and reach his destination. It allows for it. It never makes a comment that one is better than the other. But a very foolish conclusion. It also doesn't say that you mix and match all religions. Again, that is a very foolish idea. You don't do that. You destroy the integrity of all the world religions. You are not supposed to do that. This is what comes out of this Grand Master. And as I said, in this century, this teaching is going to become central, key teaching in the way you teach any religion. Forget about what religion. Any religion cannot be taught without looking at the framework of pluralism. This is going to be very visible. There's a separate aspect to it, second aspect to this. You see, when I introduced all these various personalities, I was trying to keep the magical, mystical side to the minimum, because I want to present a religion in the modern format which doesn't challenge our common sense and rationality. I've tried to keep my feet on the ground as much as possible. It has not always been possible, but anyway, I've tried. Now let me look at the way, you see, this Ramakrishna is full of this kind of dynamic ideas, fully kind of charged up with spirituality, keen to pass this on to various people who will become the carriers of this very broad message of religion. He is keen, and the youngsters begin to arrive. Some householders join in. Again, you see, this Ramakrishna is very keen that these youngsters test him to the full. Do you know why? He knows that he's going to be here for a short time, then he will go, and the youngsters have to carry on the work. If the youngsters, this disciple that he chooses, have some niggling doubt about him, they can't do a proper job. So while he's around, let them come and test him. Let them really come and check him out thoroughly, left, right, and center. He was very keen. And this his disciples readily did. Of course, the most popular disciple is Swami Vivekananda. And he hears all these things. I'll tell you how rough this Vivekananda is on Ramakrishna. How for 6 years he challenged his master at every stage. He would not agree with anything. And yet this master was, oh, I like this chap. He's asking me such good questions. Just give an example how sharp he was. When this Ramakrishna, I can see the mother goddess, divine mother. He said, this is all imagination. Then Ramakrishna, but she talks to me. That's too imagination, said Vivekananda. No, this is very frightful. Now, Ramakrishna loves this Vivekananda. He knows he's establishing rationality. He's a dynamo, a powerful rationalist. And he got rattled. Ramakrishna got rattled. He ran into the temple like, little chap shuddering. Went to the mother goddess, checked up. And he came out smiling. He said, "You rascal." The language between guru and disciple, this is the language they were using. "You rascal, you rattle me." I checked up with mother goddess. She said, "This guy will later on agree with what you are saying. For the time being, tell him that he's got it wrong, because the very thing that appears as the material world becomes more clearly visible as these gods and goddesses. So you're not dealing with some airy, fairy, second-rate thing. You're dealing with something that is much more grander than the material world that you see. And he will admit to it later on, don't worry." So this is how the master and disciple are interacting. One day, you see, this Ramakrishna, after it, remember those days when you would take a rupee and some clay and say, "Rupee, clay, I can't distinguish," and pour them both into the water. From that day on, he had decided not to touch money physically. Now he's a stickler for truth. So if he says he will not touch money, he means it, literally means it. You see, look at his feet. There is no ornament, there is no gold, there is nothing. So the question of touching money is out of the way, out of the question. Now this Narendra, you see, is not going to let him off. So one day he went to Dakshineshwar and Ramakrishna was away. He said, "Okay, perfect time to test." He took out 1 rupee coin, placed it under the mattress. Not on top, under the mattress. Test him thoroughly. See to what level of sensitivity this guy is. And this Ramakrishna came back. Naren, he looks at him, goes into immediate ecstasy. You are here. He was in a mood, and he sat down on his bed, and he jumped up as if a scorpion had bitten him. He jumped up, and everybody said, "What happened? Some insect? What bitten this man?" So they took out the mattress, and out popped the coin, fell on the floor. And Vivekananda was looking like this, and Ramakrishna looked at him and said, "Good. Carry on, my boy. Continue to test me to the full. Literally test me at every stage." And this would happen. It will happen the other way around too. Once, just to test this guy. You see, Ramakrishna, at the name of Vivekananda, he would go into ecstasy. The moment he starts using the word Narendra, he will start going "na" and go into ecstasy. Record it again and again. Go into that much love for his disciple. Now, Narendra, one time, Ramakrishna let me test him. So when Narendra came, he turned his back on him. He wouldn't look at him. He would talk to others, and when Narendra comes to talk, he ignores him and talks to somebody else. We've had this experience, we meet people like that. So he deliberately kept avoiding him, and wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him, wouldn't smile at him, just ignore him completely. And this was not for a day. It went on for many days. He kept ignoring him completely as if he's nobody. Now, anybody else would have felt, really, look, first he praises me to the highest heaven. Then he's ignoring me. I better not go anymore. This is the standard reaction. And he kept coming and kept listening and without any problem. Then one day Ramakrishna called him, "Come here. I'm ignoring you. Why do you keep coming?" He would ask him bluntly. He said, look at the answer is equally good. He said, "I come here to listen to you. I come here because I love you, not because you talk to me." I said, okay, got you. See, that was the relationship. And again, once in a while, this Ramakrishna would get so exuberant about his disciple. Once Keshav Chandra Sen, Keshav Chandra Sen, he draws 100,000 people in his movement like that. He's the most popular religious personality in Calcutta in his time. The founder, the main kind of proponent of Brahmo Samaj. So Keshav Chandra Sen is standing, and this Narendra, who is just 18-year-old boy, standing next to him. This is the master. Keshav Chandra, everybody bows down, touches his feet all the time. And they're both standing next to each other. And you see, I told you, Ramakrishna is very, very outspoken. He looked at both and said, the light here is like a little candle light. The light here is the blazing sun. Now this is terrible, to compare them little oil lamp, and the other one is like the blazing sun. And everybody protested, including Vivekananda protested. Said, "Look, don't say stuff like that. This is very rude. You're offending this fellow. Don't talk like that." And Ramakrishna, "Look, what I saw, I said. I can't help myself. But look, what he said, who knows the Keshav Chandra Sen? And who is going to know Keshav Chandra Sen in the next 100 years? It is a forgotten memory. And this dynamo, this fireball that Ramakrishna picked up and threw to the west, is going to become and a very major accepted figure for spirituality in the West in days to come. Forget about India. In the West, they're going to adopt him, they're going to give him blonde hair, blue eyes, and make him Anglo-Saxon and take him away. That's how much they're going to love him. I'm guaranteeing you, in our lifetime, we'll see that beginning to happen. So here is, you see, you would make this kind of blunt comment, little candlelight, blazing sun. So this is the relationship between the master and the disciple, both testing each other to the full, and yet becoming, and challenging each other. You see, this without challenging, you see, Ramkrishna said, look, if you don't challenge me, if you don't interact with me, how will you learn? In order for you to progress, to evolve, you need to challenge me, continue to challenge me. He encouraged all his disciples to challenge him, to test him to the full. You see, we talked about this Latu. Remember this Latu, this servant boy who became this great monastic disciple, the first monastic disciple of the Ramakrishna order. And you see this guileless person, how he lived. And then sometimes to take shelter from the rain, he would go and sleep in the open carriage. And the carriage gets linked to the train and disappears 50 miles away, and he wakes up saying, where am I? And he said, from now on I don't take shelter in the carriage. And see, these guileless personalities. One day this Ramakrishna did the story. Remember, we've been using the story for children of Jatila. The young boy, whose mummy said, my boy, if you go through the forest, feel frightened, just call on your brother. Your brother is Krishna and his name is Madhusudan. So this boy, Jatila, was able to get first-hand experience of God as his brother. And this Ramakrishna did the story. And this little Latu is listening, is in trouble. The moment the story finishes, it goes to the Panchvati. There's a little forest in the north of the temple. He goes in there, shouts, oh Madhusudan, where are you? Wailing, crying all night for Madhusudan. You see, everything the Ramakrishna said had an immediate impact. The thing is, he didn't only just preach high philosophy. Each and every individual who came near him, he managed to lift them up and open up the doorways of spiritual experience. He was dishing out not philosophy and theory, he was dishing out experience firsthand. Every one of them was allowed to immediately experience this idea of spirit, God for himself, each and every disciple who came near him. Let me take the story a stage further. During this time, he came across another young man. The name of this young man is Yogin. Now, Yogin comes from a very aristocratic family, and he's very strongly attracted to Ramakrishna, starts visiting Ramakrishna again and again. He's absolutely in love with his personality. You see, if spirituality is sincere here, you'll be drawn to other people who are equally sincere and spiritually evolved. It'll come naturally. It's like a natural law. You'll be drawn by them. So this Yogin is drawn by Sri Ramakrishna and is very close to him. Things are going well, so far so good. But then Yogin's mother said, look, standard stuff in every family. My boy, you're grown up, it is time for you to get married. And Yogin is not very keen on getting married. Look, I'm not putting down the institute of marriage, I'm also married, so don't worry, we all pay a price. So he said, mother said, look, it's time for you to get married. Yogin said, no, please leave me, mother. No, you must get married. And the mother, you see, the two tools women have are tears. This is number two, I'll mention it later on. They are very powerful tools. She cries her eyes out, look at me, old mother, struggling to cook. We need somebody in the house to take the responsibility. I can't carry on forever, my boy. This is the least you can do for your mother. Is this my in Hindu? This is the problem, big thing. So there's, so mother started crying. Yogin finally relented. The boys are like that. Mummies cry, boys are gone. That's big for all the boys we know. So Yogin relented and got married. And he said, he was crestfallen. He said, now I can't go near my master Ramakrishna because I'm married, and he was talking about becoming spiritually evolved, and I can never go near him because I'm impure now. This is terrible. I've fallen down and I really lost my track. So he said, I can't go near. In the meantime, this Ramakrishna becoming very agitated, because you see, he's aware of each and every of his major disciples, and if they're struggling, the struggle goes to him. He's becoming very agitated. He sends messages after messages to Yogin's house, says, send Yogin here, I'm waiting for him, I want to look at him. Where is he? Why doesn't he come? And Yogin says, he doesn't know what's happened to me, I don't want to go. He'll look at my face, he'll know what's happened to me. So I'd rather not go. And he would avoid. Now how to pull him? He will use every trick under the sun. So he remembered that this yogin had been given some money by the temple to buy some equipment for the temple. The equipment had arrived, but a few annas, few pence had not been settled for the account. So there was balance left, a few pence. So he sent a message saying the temple is annoyed that you are such a cheat. Now Yogin said, I have fallen down, but not that far. They're calling me a cheat, 2 pence, 5 pence, they're calling me a cheat. This is terrible. He came with his money, you see. In the moment, this is a lovely story. These are real things, these are recorded stuff. This is not anything make believe. So Yogin comes with his few annas, and Ramakrishna waiting. Where are you, my boy? Come here. He prostrated to him. He said, I've been waiting for you. Where are you? Don't you understand? I'm burning up without you. Why do you come and see me? And Yogin was trying to give a pen. He said, keep it to yourself. Come here. Look, my boy, he said, don't worry. If you're married, you've not lost your track. It is perfectly all right. Bring your wife here, I'll sort her out. She will not be a hindrance to your spiritual progress. Bring her here. And if you want to leave your wife, I'll sort that out for you too. He's talking like that. You said, this is possible? Yes, he's talking like, he said, don't you see? What have you done wrong? Don't worry. Continue to come. And this yogin is again redrawn, again pulled back into the fold. You see, this yogin became Swami Yoganand. And there was a unique feature about Swami Yoganand. I'll tell you about it. You'll like it. Sometimes he would stay in the master's room at night. They are young boys. They take a blanket and they just lie on the floor and put the blanket over the head and go to sleep. And they stay here because in case Ramakrishna wants in the middle of the night, water or something, they jump up and do it. They are the disciples. One day Yogin suddenly opened his eyes and Ramakrishna's bed was empty. He looked around in the room. He's not available, not visible anywhere. And the door is open. And for an instant, Yogin thought, this Ramakrishna is talking about celibacy and all that, a platonic relationship with his wife, and the wife lives in a room outside, just a few feet away, little tiny room. He thought. Immediately the thought arose, he was rattled. Because if you really respect and love somebody, suddenly you feel that your respect has not been, your trust has been broken. You would feel agitated. You feel very agitated. Oh dear, I got it wrong here. He's going to see his wife. He quietly came out. He's not going to let go. He came out quietly and waited and kept looking at the room of his wife to see if he's going to emerge from there. And after some time, this Ramakrishna used to wear little kind of slippers, will go click, click. He heard the click, click coming from the forest. He's gone for natural call, to answer the call of nature. He came out and you saw Yogin, and Yogin was crestfallen. Ramakrishna could read his mind. He said, good, my boy, good. Test the sadhu in the morning, test him even more at night. Don't let them off. Do not trust people like that. I am pleased. One day, you see, this Ramakrishna, after remember those days when you would take a rupee and some clay and say, rupee, clay, I can't distinguish, and pour them both into the water. From that day on, he had decided not to touch money physically. Now he's a stickler for truth. So if he says he will not touch money, he means it, literally means it. You see, look at his feet. There is no ornament, there is no gold, there is nothing. So question of touching money is out of the way, out of the question. Now this Narendra, you see, is not going to let him off. So one day he went to Dakshineshwar and Ramakrishna was away. He said, okay, perfect time to test. He took out 1 rupee coin, placed it under the mattress. Not on top, under the mattress. Test him thoroughly. See to what level of sensitivity this guy is. And this Ramakrishna came back, Naren, he looks at him, goes into immediate ecstasy. You are here. He was in a mood, and he sat down on his bed, and he jumped up as if a scorpion had bitten him. He jumped up. And everybody said, what happened? Some insect, what bitten this man? So they took out the mattress, and out popped the coin, fell on the floor. And Vivekananda was looking like this, and Ramakrishna looked at him and said, good. Carry on, my boy. Continue to test me to the full. Literally test me at every stage. And this would happen. It will happen the other way around too. Once, just to test this guy, You see, Ramakrishna, at the name of Vivekananda, he would go into ecstasy. The moment he starts using the word Narendra, he will start going na and go into ecstasy. Record it again and again, go into it. That much love for his disciple. Now, Narendra, one time, Ramakrishna let me test him. So when Narendra came, he turned his back on him. He wouldn't look at him. He would talk to others, and when Narendra comes to talk, he ignores him and talks to somebody else. We've had this experience, we meet people like that. So he deliberately kept avoiding him, and wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him, wouldn't smile at him, just ignore him completely. And this was not for a day. It went on for many days. He kept ignoring him completely as if he's nobody. Now, anybody else would have felt, really, look, first he praises me to the highest heaven. Then he's ignoring me. I better not go anymore. This is the standard reaction. And he kept coming and kept listening and without any problem. And one day Ramakrishna called him, come here. I'm ignoring you. Why do you keep coming? He would ask him bluntly. He said, look at the answer is equally good. He said, I come here to listen to you. I come here because I love you, not because you talk to me. I said, okay, got you. See, that was the relationship. And again, once in a while, this Ramakrishna would get so exuberant about his disciple. Once Keshav Chandra Sen, Keshav Chandra Sen, he draws 100,000 people in his movement like that. He's the most popular religious personality in Calcutta in his time. The founder, the main kind of proponent of Brahmo Samaj. So Keshav Chandra Sen is standing, and this Narendra, who is just 18-year-old boy, standing next to him. Hey, this is the master. Keshav Chandra, everybody bows down, touches his feet all the time. And they're both standing next to each other. And you see, I told you, Ramakrishna is very, very outspoken. He looked at both and said, the light here is like a little candle light. The light here is the blazing sun. Now this is terrible, to compare them little oil lamp, and the other one is like the blazing sun. And everybody protests, including Vivekananda protested, look, don't say stuff like that, this is very rude, you're offending this fellow, don't talk like that. And Ramakrishna, look, what I saw, I said, I can't help myself. But look, what he said, who knows the Keshav Chandra Sen? And who is going to know Keshav Chandra Sen in the next 100 years? It is a forgotten memory. And this dynamo, this fireball that Ramakrishna picked up and threw to the West is going to become a very major accepted figure for spirituality in the West in days to come. Forget about India. In the West, they're going to adopt him, they're going to give him blonde hair, blue eyes, and make him Anglo-Saxon and take him away. That's how much they're going to love him. I'm guaranteeing you, in our lifetime, we'll see that beginning to happen. So here is, you see, you would make this kind of blunt comment. Little candlelight, blazing sun. So this is the relationship between the master and the disciple, both testing each other to the full. And yet becoming, and challenging each other. You see, this without challenging. You see, Ramakrishna said, look, if you don't challenge me, if you don't interact with me, how will you learn? In order for you to progress, to evolve, you need to challenge me, continue to challenge me. He encouraged all his disciples to challenge him, to test him to the full. You see, we talked about this Latu. Remember this Latu, this servant boy who became this great monastic disciple, the first monastic disciple of the Ramakrishna order. And you see this guileless person, how he lived. And then sometimes to take shelter from the rain, he would go and sleep in the open carriage. And the carriage gets linked to the train and disappears 50 miles away, and he wakes up saying, where am I? And he said, from now on I don't take shelter in the carriage is in. See, these guileless personalities. One day this Ramakrishna did the story. We've been using the story for children of Jatila. The young boy, whose mummy said, my boy, if you go through the forest, feel frightened, just call on your brother. Your brother is Krishna and his name is Madhusudan. So this boy, Jatila, was able to get first experience of God as his brother. And this Ramakrishna did the story. And this little Latu is listening, is in trouble. The moment the story finishes, it goes to the Panchvati. There's a little forest in the north of the temple. He goes in there, shouts, oh Madhusudan, where are you? Wailing, crying all night for Madhusudan. You see, everything the Ramakrishna said had an immediate impact. The thing is, he didn't only just preach high philosophy. Each and every individual who came near him, he managed to lift them up and open up the doorways of spiritual experience. He was dishing out not philosophy and theory, he was dishing out experience firsthand. Every one of them was allowed to immediately experience this idea of spirit, God for himself, each and every disciple who came near him. Let me take the story a stage further. During this time, he came across another young man. The name of this young man is Yogin. Now, Yogin comes from a very aristocratic family, and he's very strongly attracted to Ramakrishna, starts visiting Ramakrishna again and again. He's absolutely in love with his personality. You see, if spirituality is sincere here, you'll be drawn to other people who are equally sincere and spiritually evolved. It'll come naturally. It's like a natural law. You'll be drawn by them. So this Yogin is drawn by Sri Ramakrishna, and he's very close to him. Things are going well. So far, so good. But then Yogin's mother said, look, standard stuff in every family. My boy, you're grown up, it is time for you to get married. And Yogin is not very keen on getting married. Look, I'm not putting down the institute of marriage, I'm also married, so don't worry, we all pay a price. So he said, mother said, look, it's time for you to get married. Yogin said, no, please leave me, mother. No, you must get married. And the mother, you see, the two tools women have are tears. This is number two, I'll mention it later on. They are very powerful tools. She cries her eyes out. Look at me, old mother, struggling to cook. We need somebody in the house to take the responsibility. I can't carry on forever, my boy. This is the least you can do for your mother. Is this my in Hindu? This is the problem, big thing. So so mother started crying. Yogin finally relented. The boys are like that. Mummies cry, boys are gone. That big for all the boys we know. So Yogin relented and got married. And he said, he was crestfallen. He said, now I can't go near my master Ramakrishna because I'm married, and he was talking about becoming spiritually evolved, and I can never go near him because I'm impure now. This is terrible. I've fallen down and I really lost my track. So he said, I can't go near. In the meantime, this Ramakrishna becoming very agitated, because you see, he's aware of each and every of his major disciples, and if they're struggling, the struggle goes to him. He's becoming very agitated. He sends messages after messages to Yogin's house, says, send Yogin here, I'm waiting for him, I want to look at him. Where is he? Why doesn't he come? And Yogin says, he doesn't know what's happened to me, I don't want to go. He'll look at my face, he'll know what's happened to me. So I'd rather not go. And he would avoid. Now how to pull him? He will use every trick on the tray, under the sun. So he remembered that this Yogin had been given some money by the temple to buy some equipment for the temple. The equipment had arrived, but a few annas, few pence had not been settled for the account. There was balance left, a few pence. So he sent a message saying the temple is annoyed that you are such a cheat. Now Yogin said, I have fallen down, but not that far. They're calling me a cheat, 2 pence, 5 pence, they're calling me a cheat. This is terrible. He came with his money, you see. In the moment, this is a lovely story. These are real things, these are recorded stuff. This is not anything make-believe. So Yogin comes with his few annas, and Ramakrishna waiting, where are you, my boy? Come here. He prostrated to him. He said, I've been waiting for you. Where are you? Don't you understand? I'm burning up without you. Why do you come and see me? And Yogin was trying to give a pen. He said, keep it to yourself. Come here. Look, my boy, he said, don't worry. If you're married, you've not lost your track. It is perfectly all right. Bring your wife here. I'll sort her out. She will not be a hindrance to your spiritual progress. Bring her here. And if you want to leave your wife, I'll sort that out for you too. He's talking like that. You said, this is possible? Yes, he's talking like, he said, don't you see? What have you done wrong? Don't worry. Continue to come. And this Yogin is again redrawn, again pulled back into the fold. You see, this Yogin became Swami Yoganand. And there was a unique feature about Swami Yoganand. I'll tell you about it. You'll like it. Sometimes he would stay in the master's room at night. They are young boys. They take a blanket and they just lie on the floor and put the blanket over the head and go to sleep. And they stay here because in case Ramakrishna wants in the middle of the night, water or something, they jump up and do it. They are the disciples. One day Yogin suddenly opened his eyes and Ramakrishna's bed was empty. He looked around in the room, he is not available, not visible anywhere. And the door is open. And for an instant, Yogin thought, this Ramakrishna is talking about celibacy and all that, a platonic relationship with his wife, and the wife lives in a room outside, just a few feet away, little tiny room. He thought. Immediately the thought arose, he was rattled. Because if you really respect and love somebody, suddenly you feel that your respect has not been, your trust has been broken, you would feel agitated. You feel very agitated. Oh dear, I got it wrong here. He's going to see his wife. He quietly came out. He's not going to let go. He came out quietly and waited and kept looking at the room of his wife to see if he's going to emerge from there. And after some time, this Ramkaj used to wear little kind of slippers, will go click, click. He heard the click, click coming from the forest. He's gone for natural call, to answer the call of nature. He came out and you saw Yogin, and Yogin was crestfallen. Ramakrishna could read his mind. He said, good, my boy, good. Test the sadhu in the morning, test him even more at night. Don't let them off. Do not trust people like that. I am pleased. You see, this is the unique feature. He likes his disciples to test them to the full. He is not frightened. He said, the more you do it, the more you will become vibrant. That's why the most vibrant disciple was Vivekananda, who kept challenging him day and night. And he loved the challenges and reacted to it. And smiled and laughed and danced when he was challenged. He said, wow, this little boy is learning such good things like that. That was a relationship. But let me say something about Yogin. You see, there are very few human beings in this world who have been able to, if you like, overcome gender attraction. Very few. This Ramakrishna had 16 disciples, say monastic disciples in later times. None of them had risen above consciousness of the other gender. Just consciousness. This is the beginning, you get picked up there. And you know how Ramakrishna used to observe? It's all recorded, it's very unusual. He said, when I'm talking to the disciples and they're sitting here, if a beautiful woman passes by, they all sit up like that. You catch them. Without the disciples knowing, they sit up a little bit straight. You see, they are aware of a different gender passing by, and it is reflected immediately. He said, there are only two who were not at all affected. If they were lying even more like that. Two only. Out of all the disciples, two had been overcome this idea that is a different gender. They see other human being as a human being, not as a male or female. Only two, he said, out of all this, have managed to master that. And the two are Vivekananda and Yogin. He had overcome this ability. Even though this poor guy was married off, he was able to master himself, see human being as human being and not as male and female. In later life, this Yogin became the companion of Sharadamani because she would not feel shy with him at all. You see, you can make out the other person not looking at it as a man or woman. You can make out and you feel very comfortable then. He became the champion, a companion of Sharadamani because of his attitude to women. You see, this is when you see this marvelous. And by the way, what about Vivekananda? To show you the guilelessness and the speciality of this person, when he was in the West later on, became very famous. In the West, he is considered to be courteous and chivalrous. Whenever you see a woman, to open the door for her, madame, hold her hand, put her in the room or whatever, help her climb the steps, open the carriage doors. Vivekananda, by the way, you see, I'll talk about that in a minute. Vivekananda would never open any doors for any woman. And one said, but Swami, she said, look, why should I open doors? Are you disabled? So that blunt. You see, this is the first time you see no male chauvinism. This is chauvinism because we think, oh no, we are being so gentle. We are not being gentle. We are treating women as second rate, like little puppies that we pat on the back and look after and open doors for them. Yeah, little puppy, get in. You see, you are treating them like pets. And this is denigrating to women. And you see, 100 years ago, this would be considered rude not to open doors for women. And this becomes, why should I open? You are disabled. Open the doors yourself. He never helped anybody. Once he went with a woman disciple climbing up the mountain, he wouldn't give her a hand. He said, come on, struggle, get up. You're not disabled. This shows real respect for women, giving them real dignity, not patronizing them. And this is visible in the story. See? So here, let's continue with the Yogin. So Yogin, if you like, tested Ramakrishna in this particular unique manner. He showed his own uniqueness too. But Yogin also had some flaws. And again, this Ramakrishna is very aware of it and is going to thrash them out, roughly if necessary. This Yogin, for example, they would go to the market to buy some vegetable for the temple or something. And when he went, he would just, whatever came, he say, yeah, okay, I buy that. Or buy stuff, utensils, And one day brought utensil and there was crack in it. And Ramakrishna said, come here. Did you check this? He said, yeah, I just took it. I trust these people. He said, no. Being spiritual doesn't mean you become a stupid idiot. You go and, look at it and return it and bring back the right. He would take him to task. One day this yogin was in the crowd and they started, this is standard. So when you find any religious person, there are always 10 people to criticize. So they were criticizing Ramakrishna. And Yogin smiled and listened and said, all right, and went back and told his master. He said, I went to the marketplace and there were these 5 people. They were standing around criticizing you. And I said, ignorant people, they don't know. And I walked away. Ramakrishna, come here. As a disciple, the Shastras say, it's your duty to stand up for me. You should have defended me. You can't walk away like that. You go, oh dear, I thought I'm being gentle and mild. It's not being, you are being cowardly. Coward, this is a feature of a coward. You stand up for your master and defend him. You can't walk away like that. You see, so he gave that kind of sharp comments. Even though this is a very spiritual, enlightened person, he removes all the blemishes. He slowly chips them away while they stay with him. He prepares the ground for them to become true masters. Yogin was one of these great masters, became Swami Yoganand in days to come. Let me bring in another character now. You see, the reason why I'm bringing these different characters is to show you how, you see, this Ramakrishna is interacting with different personalities in different modes. There is no one rule that fits all the requirements of all the different people. The prescription must fit the requirement of the patient. There cannot be just one prescription for everybody. Another young man appears and is on the scene. His name is Niranjan. Now Niranjan is very tall, very majestic looking, and since young days he loves to play with bow and arrows. But Ramakrishna is aware of the unique character appearing. Before they appear, he would actually get a glimpse of who is going to appear and who is going to come on the scene. He gets a glimpse of this personality. So Niranjan appears and says, you see, you are in love with Ram, aren't you? He says, yes, you. You see, his devotion is to Ramachandra. And he reflects that in the way he behaves as a young boy, as a young man, heroic, very dynamic. But Niranjan had one serious flaw. You see, because he was able to go into kind of a trance, people in Calcutta were using him as a medium to communicate with the dead. She was all the time in demand, because my mummy has passed away and I want to just have a final word with her if you don't mind. Can you sit with us? You see, the reason why I'm bringing all this, because these are the different things which are still visible in modern society, and how should we react or interact with these different things that we see visible. The idea of mediums. So in the case of, first of all, they tried to make Ramakrishna a medium. So this group went to visit him and they sat around him and did all the who and all that. And he was watching, he said, yes, carry on. And they said, you are too strong, we can't do it, we can't influence you. So they let him go. But they were using Niranjan to communicate with the dead. So this Niranjan would visit Ramakrishna and he would say, come here, my boy. Why do you want to communicate with the dead when you got so many living here? You've got so many living people. Why do you want to, spend? You see, if you continue to interact with ghosts, you will become a ghost as well. So when you die, you turn into a ghost and go with these playmates. So I would advise you not to become a medium. You see, when these stories come across through the story of Ramakrishna, these are the features that are visible in modern society. You see, again, most Hindus don't know the difference between spirituality and spiritualism. Sometimes I go and some Hindus give me a lecture about, I like spiritualism. He doesn't know what he's on about. He doesn't know what he's talking. Spiritualism means communicating with the dead. So if that is what he thinks Hinduism is, and I go, oh dear, now I have no time to start by defining the word spirituality and spiritualism, but they can't distinguish. This is called spiritualism. There's a big movement in the West here. They love this idea of communicating, this Ouija board and all the rest of it. This is it. You see, do you think it is possible? I suspect it is possible. But is it worthwhile? When we got so many living with us, why do we have time for the people who have passed away? Let them go. Don't hang on to them and don't interfere. And don't let them interfere with you either. So gently he removed Niranjanananda from being a medium, saying turn to a normal human being. So he left this idea of becoming a medium. Again, Niranjan was a very tall, very dynamic, very powerful, very strong, very muscular young man. And one day, just to show you the variation, one day when Niranjana was coming to visit Dakshineshwar in the boat, the people in the boat started stuff. As soon as they came near Dakshineshwar, they started criticizing Ramakrishna. He's a madman there, mad priest of the Kali, who is this man? They start chattering and now see the difference between Yogin and Niranjan here. The moment they started this, he said, look, I'm giving you a warning. Don't say anything rude about Ramakrishna. And they stayed kept, who are you to tell us? And they start chattering and continue to pass rude comments. And when that happened, these are small boats coming from Calcutta to Dakshineshwar. So Niranjana got hold of 2 bars of the boat and started to rock it. He said, we are all going to drown now, and I know I'm a very good swimmer, the rest of you are gone. He started to rock the boat, and the people were screaming, saying, you will capsize the boat, you don't do that, Niranjana, stop it. No way, he said, you said rude things by master, I put you all into water now. So he started to rock the boat. They had to beg him, say, we will not say anything rude about Ramakrishna ever again, stop rocking the boat and let us off. So the boat arrived, and Niranjana went to see Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna knows what drama has already happened. You see, you would have thought, you say, well done, my boy. He said, come here. You see the difference? So why am I saying this? It is so necessary to recognize the context in which the teachings are presented or taught. Here, this boy was almost violent. He was prepared to take other lives just to make sure his master is not vilified. He was prepared to take lives, kill them. And this is not on either. He told them, my boy, you are very strong, but when things like you don't take lives just to protect my name, you be careful, you control yourself, control your anger. God doesn't like angry young men. Control your anger, my boy. Different prescription for a different personality. For Yogin, it was necessary to wind him up and make him a hero. For the superhero, it was necessary to wind him down and make him an ordinary hero rather than take other lives. So you see, different prescriptions were always given to different disciples. The same is true when it came to the idea of, say, marriage or celibacy. Let me just touch on it as well. It's very crucial for modern society to hear this material. When different people came to him, some people would come and they say, they want to become monastic disciples. He said, no, get married. You send them off, get them married. And some, Ramakrishna was very rude in a way. Sometimes of course, a lot of people would visit him, just out of curiosity. And he knows they are not serious, seekers of spirituality. They are just here to kind of, put nosy Parker. They just come to kind of, nose around here. When he met them, they came and said, they made a big thing about, asking important questions. He would say, you come here, there's a beautiful garden outside, nice bank of river Ganga, and the temples, visit the temples. He would send them off. He would have no time. It's not being rude. He didn't have the time to interact with this kind of worldly people who were just there to satisfy their curiosity. And those sincere devotees came, he chased after them. They can't run away from him. He would send messages to their home and bring them out. So he was very selective. And for example, with some disciples he said, get married, because he knows that this person is not suitable for monastic life, for celibacy. And he will suffer and struggle and burn. So rather that they get married. With others, he would talk of celibacy in no uncertain terms. You see, people say, but celibacy in this day and age. Again, you see the reconciliation in this life of Ramakrishna between monastic ideas and householders' ideas. Can they be reconciled? You see, in his life, that is why this man, had Shardamani sitting in the room outside. He was making an example, say it is possible to lead a householder's life. Because as you lead a householder's life, in a way you have certain protection. As a monk, you have very little protection, you have very little shelter. As a householder, you got some money flowing in, you got hopefully a suitable companion to hold your hand and progress with you. So you got a kind of a companionship, you got this kind of much more, you fight the war from inside a castle, that's what he called it. So in a way, householder's life is not something to put down, but again to elevate the householder's life so that the householder's life can also be spiritual. This is visible in the way he, if you like, gave different instruction to different disciples. With some it was nothing but sharp comments about celibacy. With others he said, not for you, get married, send them off. So as I said, unusual characters started to arrive at the temple of Dakshineshwar. And there's a very interesting kind of set of interaction between different disciples. Sometimes two disciples of his would fit very well together, like Loren and Latu. Naren and Latu, they fit in very well. And Ramakrishna would say, the right utensil, the right lead for the right utensil. They fit. Gujarati ma chibu, right sufariu. They would fit well. And some there will be sparks. They couldn't sit well. And they are all highly charged up spiritual personality. And yet there will be sparks. With others there will be tremendous unity. So various personalities came in contact. And the story continues. As I said, we are going to touch on the monastic disciples as well as the non-monastic disciples, the householders. So far, you see, I have not talked about any female disciples at all. And this may make you wonder, why? What happened to the female?